So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now 7 o'clock. I want to welcome everyone to our Conservation Commission meeting on Valentine's Day here. And my name's Chris Garahan. I'm the chairman of this commission. And so we'll start the meeting out. This meeting is obviously being recorded. The first item we have in tonight's agenda is we have the opportunity for any open session or citizen concern, something that might not be on the agenda. So just raise your hand, give us your name and address, and we'll entertain those now. All right, nothing jumps right up yet. So we have Mr. Evan Belansky is our Director of Community Development and Planning in Chelmsford. He's come to talk to us about a couple of issues. Good evening, Mr. Belansky.
Hi, good evening. What's the first item that you wanted to talk about?
The first item we have on is Grist Mill condo post-construction status update.
Okay. So as you likely know, that project was fully permitted by the planning board. And at this point, it's fully occupied. As-builts have been submitted. And on the planning board side, that project is closed out as it pertains to an active construction site. The one item that remains, I guess, open is the bridge, the pedestrian bridge over the existing vehicular bridge. And I have a letter of commitment from the developer to install that bridge when such time as DPW is able to coordinate the remaining improvements to Cushing Place.
Excellent. That's very good progress. I'm very happy to hear that. Good. Good. Anything else from the commission? I mean, it sounds like we're making progress here, which is good. I know we met before with the Grist Mill folks, and they were going to help on some of the invasive issues that we discussed about. And I appreciate you folks coming back again so soon. I was hoping you didn't necessarily have to come back as quick as you did, but thank you for being here. And yeah, that's good. That's a good update.
When might that be? Do we have any sense of timing?
That's a good question. Just for the background, as some of you may recall, the town received a Mass Works grant several years ago, more than several years ago, to do the upgrades to Cushing Place, which was essentially to widen it, put in a brick sidewalk on the right-hand side as you're coming in off of Central Square, and to depress the utilities. That state grant got us as far as depressing the utilities, and at this point, DPW needs to prioritize and fund the remaining streetscape work. Some of that work, most recently, was decided to be delayed based upon Mr. Moulton's proposed project to the right of Cushing Place. That original project was envisioned to do some partial demolition, new construction, and the thought was that he likely would have been within the Cushing Place right away, and it didn't make sense for the town to go in and upgrade that road until that project was done. Since then, his project is somewhat in flux. We're in the process of reaching out to him, trying to get a definitive update from him. But ultimately, it's going to be DPW's task with prioritizing Cushing Place and finding the funds. Construction-wise, it doesn't make sense to put the pedestrian bridge in until Cushing Place final grades, particularly related to ADA and the sidewalk, are in place. And as some of you know, I'm not in the business of, for punishing, for a lack of a better word, or holding up a developer where they've basically and essentially met their end of the bargain, which is kind of how I view the Cushing Place Planning Board project.
Yeah, so this was outside of any Conservation Commission
Yeah, but it's good to know.
approval of the project.
Yeah.
So it's in a sense of like 5 years, 10 years, or is that an unfair question to ask?
I mean, I would hope
question.
within 5 years. I would hope sooner than that. It's a critical component of
Well, I would think Mr. Moulton probably wants to have his project done.
yeah, like I said, we need an update from him as to what his timing is and his what his current proposal is.
So we probably would see it when the bridge is gonna go across the stream. And maybe Mr. Moulton would also need to come before conservation, depending on what he wants to do, if he's gonna be active there. So we'll see that.
Good, and then the letter of commitment, I mean, I assume you probably already shared a copy with our agent on that, if not, it was,
I haven't, I can forward the copy. It's a
let's
letter
get
of
it.
commitment.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about, I talked with the developer about posting a financial contribution. He didn't seem too keen on that right here, right now. Part of the challenge with that is that the bridge hasn't been designed, it hasn't been fabricated, because you need final grades and, you know, details as to how you're going to attach it to the existing vehicular bridge.
all right, well, that's good information.
This bridge is part of that master plan that was
The
done.
brick walk, yeah,
that-
yeah.
That you're gonna refer to
Yes.
a little bit later?
Yeah,
Yes.
right, good. Anything else, guys, before we jump on to the update on the Central Square Brick Walk, I
So
guess?
the COC has not been issued for that property then?
Right,
Correct.
right,
Correct.
right.
But he's saying from the planning board's perspective, everything's been done, so we just, and our order of conditions was pretty open, it was our standard, plus only a few special conditions, if any.
Right.
So if the, who from the applicant would ask for a certificate of compliance, since the developer is not in the scene?
Katie, you have something you want to say?
Would now be the time to discuss what we talked about? Okay. Jay Finnegan actually asked me to come tonight. I know he's been talking with Donna and with the condo association from the grist mill. I mean, Jay is not financially interested out there anymore. He doesn't own any of the units. The units have all been sold. But Jay is a well-known name around town and wants to do what's right. Essentially, there was no reason for us to seek a COC. Really, because it's not required for them to close the units for anything, so it just didn't happen. We were waiting for kind of some of these other things to finish up. Meaning the units can sell unless an attorney for one of the buyers
Excuse me,
flags
Katie.
it.
Isn't the first sale
No,
by the developer to the first condo occupant require a COC?
no, it does not.
Well, it really depends on the closing.
It depends on the closing attorney.
Okay.
It's not required. It depends on the closing attorney and whether or not they flag it.
And how about from the first owner of the condo one to the next owner of condo one?
Again, it depends on the attorney.
Same reason? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
in the orders of conditions that I've written since I've been here, there is a requirement that if all or any portion of the property is conveyed, then the Conservation Commission needs to be notified and it needs to be
Right.
reflected in the deed.
So
there's
that
an
may
open
be
order of
something that
conditions.
we didn't do back then.
Right. That's why we just closed. Remember, I was just here to close out like 4 or 5 open ones for Fisk and Oddfellows because there was no legal reason for anybody to come back and close them. So Jay certainly wants this off your plate too. So I spoke with Jay last week. He asked me to come on his behalf tonight. So he is asking me to look into filing for the COC. I know that the commission, it's been on the commission's agenda now for probably 2 years. I know Donna has been here with the condo association. I talked with David about it after Jay asked me to come to this meeting. So we'd like to close it out, and so I know a couple things. Jay's been alerted that there's a couple things in the brook. I know there's been some conversations that have been kind of going in circles related to that. Jay is committing and has told Donna that he would commit to removing the items from the brook that the commission still feels still needs to be removed. So I know David mentioned that Jay might want to just take a walk with him and flag those items.
That'd be very good. Good
I
idea.
I
Yeah.
told Jay that it might make sense for him to coordinate with Alan Costas at 9 Acton Road, if it would be easier for him to use his equipment from the 9 Acton Road side to get the materials out, but we'll have to figure out where they are, where right now, our side of the brook is completely 100% stabilized and basically done. You don't want to bring in big equipment on that side right now, so if it can be done by hand, he wants to get it closed out. So he's willing
Excellent.
to certainly work in concert with the commission to get those two pieces, 2 or 3, I'm not sure how many pieces are still out there. I know I saw 2 small areas. Well, I'm sure they're heavy, but not large pieces, but.
There's a number of different things of assorted sizes.
Okay.
I think it's a matter of me going out with Jay and.
And I had walked it, and then Jay had walked it with your agent at the time, Katie Gerton, and Katie had suggested to him, he was willing to go out there and do it. Katie suggested to him that certain items not be removed because of where they were and how they were embedded in the brook, and that's why he stepped away from that. Now, understanding Katie is no longer here, and the commission is ultimately the one that has to issue the COC, he thought he had worked in good faith to get that as cleaned up as necessary. Understanding that he realizes that's not the case, he's willing to then reinsert himself in the project, even though he's sold the last unit, to make sure that the commission is happy with that aspect of the
Good.
project.
Well, I appreciate that, Katie, and if you could pass that on to Mr. Finnegan, I appreciate his commitment. And again, he's had a long-standing, very good
And that's why
reputation in
he's
this
still here,
community.
right.
And we appreciate that commitment, and I'm sure, and again, I'm sure the grist mill appreciates, again, that, him coming in to make the commitment, to help it out, because we didn't want the burden to fall, on those folks, so.
And
I
so
think that'd be
once
great.
that's done, Evan updated you about the bridge. I believe once that's done, if there's nothing else that the commission is concerned about, I would then seek.
Well, there was just that one other issue that I've spoken to the association about and with you when we met was the invasives.
The invasives. So I did speak to Greg Hockmuth, who's the wetland scientist that worked on the project, the grist mill, and also worked with us on 9 Acton Road. So he had done an invasive plan for 9 Acton Road, which is essentially the side of the brook the other side of the brook that the commission, or that the association owns. I asked him, just based on what you asked me, David, how much it would cost to update that plan and to include the grist mill side of the brook, and he said the plan itself would probably only be $600 or $700. That it would be, that would dictate what the invasives are and how they are to be removed and how that is to be maintained. And then your landscaper or somebody who's capable of doing that would then take it over for the brook. So he had suggested that, he would basically use what we used. He would do a quick site visit on the other side of the brook, just make sure it was up to date, and could prepare that if you wanted
Jay
to.
be taking care of getting it initially done and then we'll maintain it?
No, because it was not part of the notice of intent that we had proposed. It wasn't part of the proposal that we had put forth to the commission during the permitting of grist mill.
Okay,
So we've never seen the order of conditions.
yeah.
It's recorded at the registry, and I could
is.
send it to you.
Yeah, that would be
I have a
good if you
copy-
could.
I have a copy of the recorded order with the recording information on it. Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Still have not seen any.
Yeah, we've been looking for that.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. It's in my it's in my folder on my server,
And
so I can send it
David,
to
you've
you.
located that now too, as well?
Yes.
Yeah, and David's located a copy now too, as well.
So I can send it. It doesn't matter who.
We've been asking for people to send us stuff and nothing ever gets to us, so.
Okay, yeah, no, I have it.
Okay.
I hadn't been asked for it, so I could send it to you, certainly, and I could coordinate that with Greg Hockmuth if you wanted to look at the invasives issues out there, but it was not something that had been submitted to the commission as part of the grist mill project.
Although, as you saw, it is in a couple of the meeting minutes.
Right, at the first 2 meetings, I mentioned having an invasive removal plan done, and it was never done, and it was never submitted, and it never became part of the order. My guess, and we talked about this, that project went through probably 4 massive iterations. It started with Win Stanley, went from 54 units to 70 units, to 32 units, to direct drilling under the brook, to back to not direct drilling under the brook. It changed applicants, it changed teams. I saw, you showed me where I said it in 2016 in the first 2 meetings that we would look at an invasive removal plan. It never was done. It was never part of the order. It was never approved. It was never reviewed. It just didn't happen by the time it got approved and brought before.
So hopefully the association's willing to do it.
So you can have a conversation with Jay, but yeah, it was not part of the approval.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I heard a couple of things which I think is interesting. One is, this project does not need a certificate of compliance, nor does it need a certificate of compliance?
I need to, Dave. I mean, the law is really specific.
Right.
You know, the
When-
mass
when-
law is
When
really
the
clear.
units change hands.
Absolutely.
You just never
So-
know
No,
when someone
no, I
might want
understand.
it.
Yeah.
Our previous discussions, we were using the non-issuance of a certificate of compliance as some leverage. We don't do that now for this project, because it's not needed.
Well, I wouldn't say it's not needed at all. I mean, a good conveyancing attorney is gonna
It'll
ask for
come
that
up
order.
eventually, and,
It's gonna come up.
But
right.
are you saying that this commission has to issue a certificate of compliance?
No, I'm not.
That's what I meant.
What I'm saying is a good conveyancing attorney will run title on a property.
Yep.
And they will notice that there's an order of conditions issued by us. And the good conveyancing attorney is gonna make sure that they get a certificate of compliance, because otherwise,
So-
they're inheriting a risk that could be,
So
come
Chris,
upon
you're saying
the
that we
the
do have
buyers.
to issue one, if it's asked for?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, if we ask for one, you do
Yeah.
have to
Okay,
act.
but nobody to date has asked for one.
That's correct.
So there's 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 nothing causing us to hold the applicant, whoever that is, feet to the fire to complete stuff in order to have a certificate of compliance.
Well, in this case.
That will happen when somebody asks for one, which might be 5 years from now.
No, Jay wants me to do it
I
as soon as
understand, Katie,
possible.
I'm just saying,
If it was
I'm trying to
somebody else,
understand
yes.
the sequence of events.
But basically, we're relying at this point, Dave, on the commitment that we have, that Mr. Finnegan's gonna do what he said he just did.
Well, and he wants to do it on behalf of the condo association.
And the condo
so it would
association's
just be
been
done.
coming to us in good faith and working with us, and we know that they're gonna do, act in good faith.
But I'm saying if it was anybody else, you're true, it's very right, you're
Okay, I
true.
also heard that there was nothing in the order of conditions that required the developer to clean out the stream and the embankment.
Yeah, and
There
that's,
there is an understanding
and that's,
that Ms. Enright
Correct.
just
and that's
referenced,
concerning, honestly.
okay?
Concerning.
But it's not in the order of conditions.
And it should have been.
Okay,
I don't.
so hold on a minute, let me finish. If it's not in the order of conditions, and if the condo association wants to do it, it's a new filing to us. It's outside of this one. All they have to do is come before us and say, which they have, we want to do X, Y, Z. We've identified half a dozen boulders or half a dozen, certain areas that we feel need to be cleaned up. Since it's within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, we're seeking the Concom's approval to do it. But that's not the original order of conditions. That's a new filing on the part of the condo association.
I would make anybody do a new filing in this case.
It's no big deal. It keeps the two things separate. One of the things is, this got all cloudy and mixed up because we started confusing stuff with the order of conditions and with a certificate of compliance. I think if we keep them as separate units, okay? The other one is, there is a requirement, as I understand it, in the order of conditions, for an invasive management program.
No, that's not in the.
Okay? So that's outside of the order of conditions. So there's nothing outstanding in the order of conditions at this point. The two things we just mentioned, I think, then are outside of the order of conditions and should be treated that way.
I'd like to see a copy of the order of conditions for one thing.
Well, I'll take the
So I guess at
conservation's
this
agent's
point,
word.
Jay was willing, because the current order of conditions is still valid and active, to remove those pieces from the brook because he had agreed to do that.
I'm not saying he
Regar-
shouldn't, and I'm not
understood.
against it. I'm just trying to look at it as separate things and not combine them into one big kludge that
Mm-hmm.
we get confused about, okay? That's all. It's gonna be a long night.
Now I'm confused. So you're saying I should file for a certificate of compliance and that you, as one commission member, would give it to me now
If
based on
everything's
what's been
been done under the original order of conditions, sure, why shouldn't we? If the original order of conditions was written incorrectly by this commission and its agent at the time, that's an administrative matter we need to address. But the order of conditions is what was signed off by the commission.
My perception of what's driving this is when this was first brought up shortly after I started here, And then based on the research I did, where again, I could not find any evidence of a certificate of compliance having been issued, then I brought it up. But I heard several members of this commission express concern that there were things still outstanding, remaining to be done before the certificate of compliance could be issued.
But what I heard tonight is those things were not in the original order of conditions.
Not explicitly, no. That's correct.
Okay. I think we should take Mr. Finnegan up at his offer. I think it's a
Absolutely.
gracious offer on his part. We ought to use it. We ought to make sure that the condo association, working with the conservation agent, has identified those specific areas that need to be cleaned up. And then we need to also work with them to implement their invasive management program. And remember what I said to you guys last time you were here. I mean, invasive management program is not something you do once and then file.
It's forever.
It's gonna have to be looked at every year, and it's probably, once you get it up to speed, it's probably a fairly minimal project, unless it gets away from you again,
Right.
so.
All right. Well, good. Well, again, thank you for the commitment.
Okay.
I think it's progress. I'm hearing progress on the bridge situation, so, and again, I appreciate the Gristmill Association coming in again, spending time with us, and everything I'm hearing is folks are working in good faith to address some concerns that have been raised by this commissioner, and we can maybe put those to bed, finally, I think.
Well, we should have some periodic update of where we stand, because there's no reason for them
No.
legally to come back.
No,
on us.
no. Again, we appreciate you coming out again to our meeting. It's great seeing you guys here for consecutive meetings, but I'm sure you've got other things on Tuesday nights where you can be. But you're always welcome here, of course. But I think we're good.
So Katie, do you have a clear understanding of how to proceed?
I'm going to give Jay your contact info, and you and Jay are going to determine the things to be removed, and Jay is then going to schedule it.
Okay. And with regard to the invasives?
That's going to be up to the condo association.
So then are you gonna request a certificate of compliance?
As soon as the pieces are removed from the brook, yes.
So as David had mentioned, it's not just pieces, there's a bunch of things
Mhm.
that need to be removed, and it's everything from trash to corroded landscaping material, to a half-broken culvert, to an enormous brick, to maybe some automotive parts, things like that. So there's a number of things that need to be removed, and not just a couple.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I was mentioning to David yesterday, and I don't have pictures of what it looked like before, but this project was a significant improvement over what was there and what was in the brook and on the brook.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm sure he's willing, within reason, if the equipment's there and he's able to do it, remove the things necessary.
If you need the certificate of compliance for a sale, then that's gotta be a priority for us. Because if we wanna sell our units, we don't want the sale to be slowed down when the attorney says there's no certificate of compliance.
Absolutely. No, we understand that. And again, if you need one of those certificates of compliance, contact our agent, and we'll deal with it in an expedited manner.
I'll be doing it on behalf of Jay, I imagine, at this point, but it needs to be, either I can file for it now and the stuff doesn't get removed from the brook to have it done timely, or the stuff gets removed from the brook and then I do it, so that it can be covered. So that's the plan.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Can you send us the information on the invasives?
I can send you Greg Hockmuth's email, and you can
Right.
talk with him about it. He's the wetland scientist who prepared the agreement for us on the other side of the brook.
So do we need a wetland scientist, or could our landscaper simply do it?
You have to submit a plan to
So
the
that's
commission.
right,
You have to
yeah.
file with the commission to do it.
Oh, so that would require somebody, subject matter expert, is that what we're saying? We don't even know, Dave, what you're looking for yet, so we don't even, right?
Exactly. He's gonna go out there, meet with you, and kind of,
Well, you would need a plan. That would be the first thing you would
But
need,
does
would
it
be the
have to be
invasive.
done by a scientist, or can we say, here's the plan?
Well, somebody has to know what an invasive plant is.
Right.
Our landscaper, say, for example. I mean,
Well,
isn't
do you know he knows what they are?
he, yeah,
Has he got that kind of training? Okay.
I mean, there's specific chemicals, there's specific times of year. It's,
Right.
it's
And-
not,
And it's species specific as
Right.
well, so that's the kind of information.
Okay, then, yeah, just, I wanted to
I'll-
make sure I
I'll-
understood.
okay, I'll forward the information
Oh,
and
that's great, yeah, I appreciate
work with it
that.
from there.
It's 9:10 cents.
And he's already done, that's why it's so inexpensive, is he's already done a lot of the work for 9 Acton Road, so you would piggyback off of that essentially.
Yeah, we appreciate you asking on our behalf, really, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This was an item under our open session citizen concern, so we appreciate everybody's time on this one. Mr. Belansky, back to you on the proposed Central Square brick walk.
Yeah, so yesterday I emailed a bunch of information to you, kind of primarily background information and some recent information. Rather than me going through all of that, let me just set the stage by saying the request that's in front of you right now is for the commission to sign the easement. That easement is specific, it's private property owned by Human and Ali, the owners of Fishbones, who are the owners of the Odd Fellows in the rear parking area. Per the planning board decision, they agreed to and were required to provide an easement, specifically for the purpose of the town being able to construct a brick walk. So that's the easement that's in front of you this evening for your consideration and for your signature to accept the easement. Once the easement is accepted, as I've stated and as indicated in the documents that I sent you, the town via DPW would apply for a permit from the Conservation Commission to do this work in the riverfront area on both the private property as well as what is currently the town-owned municipal parking lot, which is the remainder of the parking lot back there, to construct this portion of the brick walk. And the plans, this is the easement plan. And then a different plan that was submitted to you is a concept plan prepared by DPW showing the brick walk layout, which is this plan here. It's a limited area in which the work is proposed, meaning it's narrow in scope, ranges from top of the bank, which I believe is the wall of the canal, to the existing edge of pavement. And it is proposed to be a 30-inch gravel walkway, similar to what's up in Grist Mill 1, gravel in nature, but even more narrow than that. Removal of the existing invasive vegetation, and then, a native plantings along the riverfront for habitat and environmental restoration. And then it wraps down into a proposed, what's referred to as a pocket park, and the details of that are being worked out. But to summarize again, what's in front of you is your signature on the private property easement. That's required because the town doesn't own that portion of it. That would set the stage for town meeting voting on the CPC request, $47,000 to do this work. Once town meeting approves it, then DPW would appear before the commission for appropriate permitting. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks for the overview. Let's see if the commissioners have questions, maybe starting down this end. John?
I think it's going to be, if it can come together, I think it's going to be a good project. But I think there's other things that go with it. We're going to have to see the final plan,
Sure.
but I think it's going to be a good project.
Isn't the final plan the master plan?
So the master
I
plan.
mean, not in detail, but.
Yeah, the master plan is the concept. But as an example here, what the master plan envisioned for particular segments is not coming to fruition in accordance specifically with the master plan vision. So this segment was originally contemplated partially on this property and then cutting over cutting across the brook to the other side. So it's a work in progress. And, putting the pieces of the puzzle together is incremental, it's segregated, it's as the opportunity comes up.
Okay, John, anything more?
No, until you see the actual final plan the town comes in. But I think it's gonna be a good thing.
Okay, good, all right.
It's gonna help that area.
Hi, Evan. Peter here. I like the idea a lot, and I also like when the town comes before the commission, I like the idea of thinking a little bit about a modest habitat restoration to the extent it's habitat. But I'm heavily biased by the other day I was there, and there was pretty sure it was a baby muskrat in the parking lot that apparently its predator had been interrupted. And I started thinking about the habitat value, even though there's a parking lot on both sides of that. So I was pretty excited about the idea that maybe the town could work with the commission to do some modest, riverbank stuff, and then also maybe some public education about how it's part of the watershed,
Sure.
the water, so, that whole thing. Because, after all, while you're waiting for your martini at the local restaurant, what could be better than a little plaque saying, here's food for the critters?
Sure, yeah, there's an
I
opportunity
like it.
For public education.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks. Dave?
Who benefits from this easement in the short run?
There is no benefit in the short run. The only way there's any benefit is if the town actually builds the brook walk.
When the walk is built out, in the short run, it's gonna end?
Yep.
Where relative to the parking lot? Halfway down the parking lot?
The back rear corner,
The back corner where the
where
outflow
the lowest
is.
point of the parking lot.
Okay, so, going forward, we're gonna have to get easements or something all the way down to Summer Street, is that right?
Correct.
In order, because the ultimate objective
Yep,
is
that's
to go
correct.
from Summer Street to Central Square, cross Central Square, go over the new bridge we just were talking about,
Yep.
and go up behind the grist mill to the bike trail, correct?
Correct.
But so in the short run, if a walkway's built, the only people that really benefit from it are people who are using the restaurant.
Well, it will be programmed.
Because it doesn't go anywhere, right? In the short run.
Yeah,
It doesn't go
In the
anywhere.
short
it's,
run.
it's,
I
fair to
understand.
s- it's fair-
I
yeah,
don't-
it's
I'm
fair to
not-
s-
That doesn't mean I'm just making that comment. Is there a reason why the easement's going to the Conservation Commission?
Sure. It's a permitting strategy. As you recall, when Jay Finnegan was advancing the private project, which had a much more elaborate brook walk, similar to Grist Mill 1, DEP did not view it favorably. And that
Because it was too expansive?
it wasn't really clear as to why DEP objected to.
We had heard it was because they thought it was too close to the stream, but we were never
Yeah, exactly.
ever able to really confirm that.
Exactly. If it was no closer than Grist Mill 1.
Yeah.
But there's no talking, engaging intelligently with DEP.
But you think that maybe if the commission holds the easement, we might be able to work?
Not a might, there's an exemption in the act. And the exemption, I don't have it in front of me, but to paraphrase, it essentially says, where there's an easement on private property given to the Conservation Commission, the exemption is specifically for a trail, a non-impervious trail that's open and used by the public.
But a private entity couldn't get that.
No, there's a corresponding provision for private trails.
Okay,
as
I would
well.
hope so, because I would not want to participate in something where the Conservation Commission, it was made easier for the Conscom to abide by regulations than the general public. We should be held to the same standards that the general public is.
Right, that's why the brick walk portion on town property will use the same provisions as the exemption. It will be the same width, same type of construction, and very limited in scope.
Just as an aside, it was not made clear to me at the outset that what Evan or what the town is proposing really is a subsection of the master plan. I mean, it became very clear later, but at the outset, that wasn't clear. Question in passing, Evan, not really anything to do with this. Is there any stormwater management going to be done at the corner of that parking lot? Because it's really pretty much the way we bought it right now, isn't it?
Correct. So the lower corner is contemplated for a pocket park. It would remove the pavement on approximately 4 parking spaces. So by simply removing the pavement, that will help with drainage, stormwater infiltration. The team is, continues to be engaged with David in anticipation of applying to the commission and trying to figure out what is the best environmental approach.
Good.
So we've kicked around gravel, and now we're looking at pervious pavers that are more user-friendly. That's kind of a work in progress.
Good. All right, Bill,
I
question?
think it's a good idea.
Good. All right, good. Mark?
I just got a little concerned as the sheeting coming from that parking lot,
Did the what?
the sheeting of the rain, stormwater coming from that parking lot, and going over that new proposed trail. There's a little bit of a barrier there to stop the water from going into the brook. It's all pervious there. And adding something as close, it's not gonna be pervious, it's gonna go over, it's gonna start washing into the brook. You did touch on doing some kind of stormwater management there, but you think there's gonna be more coming eventually for that?
I don't envision it. I mean, when you have a chance to look at the plan a little bit closer and you have a chance to get out there, on both sides of the trail itself, it will be vegetated. It's currently vegetated. All of that existing invasive will be removed, and native material will be planted on both sides. My understanding of the drainage is that while there isn't any curbing at the edge of pavement, the vegetation serves as a barrier, and the water's basically filtering down or running down to the bottom corner here. At that point, yes, it does filter overland, into the, towards the brook and the wetland that's associated with it, but not up near Oddfellows.
No, not near Oddfellows, down in the corner. That's
Yeah,
my
so in the
concern.
corner, as I mentioned, and
We talked about
we're
a
working out
parking
some additional details on that.
Yeah.
But it won't be, it's not contemplated to have any hard infrastructure. It's all low-impact,
It's a fair point, Mark.
all low-impact drainage.
When Jay was proposing the condos, he was addressing that problem.
That was one of the selling things.
And one of the benefits, at least to me and the commission, was that site was gonna be significantly improved. And then when it didn't happen and it's still a parking lot, I'm glad to hear them saying they're gonna address it, yeah.
Right, within reason.
Yeah.
But it's,
Oh, yeah.
it's limited in scope.
Yeah, I don't design.
Sure.
That's obviously not what I do.
Yeah, and I mean, above my pay grade, but you certainly could design some little infiltration swales within the pavement if that was needed. You might give up some parking spots, so.
Well, that's
But
the
there
town
were some
engineers will do
solutions.
that. That's
Exactly.
what I'm doing.
There may be opportunity down in that lower corner. Again, we're trying to
Right.
work with
Well,
David and the
I'm
commission
glad
to
you're-
balance.
You're aware of it and it's
Yep,
gonna be addressed.
appreciate it.
Good. Good. Anything more, Mark?
No.
Okay, good. Carl?
Who ends up maintaining this?
So it won't be the commission unless the commission volunteers. We realize that, that's a burden. And so the filing with the commission would propose that it'd be the town and likely be DPW. And then at some point in the future, depending on the level of maintenance, and again, it's designed to be kind of self-sustaining native planting, there may be an opportunity for the town to partner with a garden club or some sort of community organization.
Well, and of course, the invasive species management will have to go on forever.
Okay, I'm good.
Two questions. Is 30 inches, can it hold handicap?
So my understanding of handicap, it's that the legal requirement is the maximum extent feasible.
Yeah.
So again,
'Cause it's certainly flat enough, but maybe the area doesn't let
but you make a good point. I don't know if 30 inches is wide enough for a wheelchair, but the only way to permit this at this point is via that exemption.
Because that's 30 inches is narrower than our standard trail width.
Is 30 inch the max on that to get that exemption?
Yes,
So it's 30 or less?
right.
And the other point is when your DPW does invasive work on that side, have them talk to the restaurant owner on the other side of the stream who was supposed to do the same thing.
On that segment of the brook walk, on that segment of the brook, I mean,
You notice I said was.
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Any other questions for the commissioners right now? No.
So just to summarize,
Yeah.
we're hopeful that the commission will express their interest in signing the easement. As soon as you can sign that easement, that would be preferred. The reason that it's somewhat time-sensitive is the CPC article is scheduled to go on the warrant, which is being signed by the Select Board on Monday, the 27th of this month. And so if you're not able to physically sign it, some indication in case the question comes up. I just want to make sure that the sequencing is in an appropriate manner.
Appreciate that. Mark, you had a question?
Just, yeah, beyond that to Summer Street, you're gonna require easements. Is that privately owned property, town-owned property?
It's all privately owned.
Yeah.
So even with the sewer line cuts through there, isn't that pretty much with the,
It's a sewer easement, probably.
Don't think
I can look into whether there's another easement.
if the sewer line goes out to Summer Street? I thought it went that way. Just something to think about.
Okay.
If it's available or it works out.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd
getting
like
the
to see this
easements may
go to
not
Summer
be,
Street.
getting the easements may not be the most
Well,
challenging part of
The
that.
master plan has it going to Summer Street.
Yes.
The big property owner is the senior
Yeah, yeah, Yep.
housing there. That's the big owner of the
Most of it,
stream
right.
side, yeah,
Right.
on that side. And then, John Harrington, I guess, still
Yes.
owns it on, behind the building.
It just make more sense if the whole thing was completed. Not now, but if it's, in a relatively soon.
Understood. It's a work in progress.
I understand.
So the commission could take a vote right
We can
now.
sign-
Well, that's
Yeah.
my suggestion, is let's take a vote now.
Did we all read it at the last meeting? Could we sign it tonight? Is
Yeah,
it here?
we got to take a vote to approve, and then we can just sign it after we vote to approve. We have a motion?
Great, thank you.
I move the
Evan.
Conservation Commission approve the acceptance of the easement as presented to us at the last meeting, I guess? I think
Okay?
it was, yeah.
Motion by Dave.
Second.
Seconded by, who was that?
Bill.
Bill, good. Any discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous, all right,
Now,
good.
somebody will have to hold off on signing this because it has to be notarized. So Evan, is there someone in the building who's a notary, is the town?
We got a notary in Town Hall?
Okay, so someone has to hold off on signing it, and then that person take it down to the town clerk and get it, and get it notarized, and they would sign it.
I can do that.
Want to do that?
Yeah, I know.
Can I do what the floor did?
Yeah.
Just no red pens.
I get my blue one.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. There we go. Well, thank you, Evan. We appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Get to this stuff yet.
All right, so we now are moving beyond the open session citizen concerns section of our agenda. Pass that back down. To the regulatory hearings. David, I think you said that we had one that we wanted to expedite,
Yes, that's coming up after these first two.
the first two. Okay, good. Let me know when that time comes, all right?
Just start right away.
The first one we have on the agenda is a notice of intent. This is Doherty Building and Design, 20 Elm Street, Stamsky and McNary, Inc., representing the applicant. This would be a legal notice, I believe, that has to be read into the record, so we'll hear from our clerk right now.
That's right, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, at 7 p.m. to consider the notice of intent filed by property owner Doherty Building and Design for proposed work within riverfront area, the River Meadow Brook, and 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 20 Elm Street, further identified as Assessor's Map 124, Block 462, Lot 14. The project entails construction of a single-family home, workshop, foundation drain, grading, and landscaping. Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Carl. Appreciate that. And now we'll have an overview presentation from the applicant. Are they out there?
You there, Aiden?
I'm here on Zoom, yes.
Excellent. Good.
Okay, so, I don't know, I can share my screen, or I can let you share your screen, and whichever's easiest, whichever you prefer.
I'm more than happy to share my screen. It might be a little
Okay.
easier if I think you have to allow it to happen.
Yep, hold on a second. No, that's not working. Okay, you should be all set. Yeah.
Perfect. Alrighty, hopefully everyone can see this here. Like just said, the proposed project is the construction of this single-family dwelling, as well as this proposed workshop, and the foundation drain as well. All takes place within 200-foot riverfront area, but outside the 100-foot riverfront area, as well as the potential construction of this well. The applicant is attempting to, during the construction of this road, to connect the house to town water, but if that isn't allowed, then the construction of the well will proceed. So we're asking that the construction of a well is approved here in this scenario. So only a portion of the proposed dwelling is within the riverfront area, but the entirety of it is within, the entirety of the proposed workshop is in the riverfront area. I have down here kind of a table that shows just how much. So total riverfront altercation is just 1,585 square feet, which amounts to just 6.6% of the total riverfront area on the property itself. Now with this, we had some DEP comments saying that the 100-foot riverfront should be 100-foot no disturb, and it should be labeled as a no mowing area, or any vegetation will be removed within this area within 100 feet, as well as stakes will be posed as permanent markers placed 50 feet apart along this line that states so. A siltation barrier has been proposed throughout the entirety, surrounding the entirety of the project to stop any sort of runoff from entering and interfering with the riverfront area or the wetlands here. These wetlands project a 100-foot buffer zone, which is, the proposed dwelling is just barely within. Just happens to be a small portion of the screened-in porch and a slight amount of the uncovered steps that will be put in, as well as the construction of the well and the proposed foundation drain. Other than that, fairly kind of straightforward project here. Designed the septic system to be completely outside of any sort of buffer zone from any sort of resource area. I am more than happy to hear any comments or questions about the project from the commission.
Well, thanks for the overview and the presentation. We appreciate that. Let's see if the commission has any questions or comments at this point. John, starting again at your end.
Looking at the plan, is the road being built out?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Is Barnes Terrace currently 40 feet wide?
The 100-foot line?
No, Barnes Terrace, is it 100 feet wide?
Barnes Terrace, so Barnes
40
Terrace
feet
here-
wide? Right?
Yes, so it's a 40-foot wide. It's not actually constructed yet. This is planned. There's a paper road currently here that splits these two lots here. There's plans to construct a road here that's plans on being 40 feet wide, but this construction of the road would be limited to what you see here on this square. It wouldn't go to the extent of what the paper road actually is, which.
All right, that's what I'm looking at is the, further in, you're getting more into the wetlands there.
Yes, so this road isn't actually being constructed by us. It's being constructed by another company, but where it ends is right here, which is entirely out of the 200-foot riverfront area and outside of any sort of buffer zone.
All right. No, I think the septic design looks pretty good.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I mean, this is the first one we've seen in a while.
Yeah?
You usually don't see a septic design. Okay. I'm all set
All right,
for
good.
now.
Peter, questions?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the size. What's the rough square footage of the dwelling?
Of the lawn, did you say?
Of the dwelling, the home?
I am not sure the total square footage.
All right, I'll figure it out on the scale.
Yeah. I can check for
Yeah,
you.
that's okay.
I can get back to you.
That's all right, I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Dave?
Our GIS has a house on this lot, is that true?
So currently this lot is not subdivided quite yet. I can show you.
So 20 Elm Street's gonna be subdivided?
Is plans on being subdivided, yes. So currently, what you see here, this is the entirety of the lot with the house over here. They plan on subdividing the lot to split it into two and then build a house on it. So
Okay,
the existing house is here with the guest house closer to the, and a paved sports court closer to the property line here that
fine.
being.
You've got two letters from DEP, and do you agree with both of them? And I know you talked about changes from one of them. How about the other one?
Yes, so the other change, initially, this proposed workshop was planned on being pretty much right up against the 100-foot riparian zone here from the riverfront area. We changed that. They didn't like how close it was, so we moved it as close as possible to the proposed house. As well as we did update our project narrative to give a better analysis. Basically, we have an analysis where since it hasn't technically been subdivided yet, there's different subdivisions that we could do, but what you see here is the best case scenario through our analysis. Different options would be we could move the house back into this wooded area here behind the sports court without put it very close to the river, bordering vegetated wetlands here.
So if you subdivide the lot and you gotta change stuff, you're gonna have to come back to us, right?
Yes, I provided it earlier today.
Okay.
But I apologize if it hasn't actually reached you yet.
What's gonna be, are there gonna be byproducts and waste coming out of the workshop, and what happens to the stuff?
I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what the proposed purpose of the workshop is. I just know that it's a proposed workshop. It could even just maybe even be a shed. What the exact purpose of it, I'm not entirely sure. I know that there's not going to be any sort of impervious area kind of to get to the workshop itself. This is all just going to be grassland in between. But this house obviously isn't constructed yet and obviously isn't lived in yet, so the proposed workshop
So
doesn't have.
this is a commercial work, this is a private workshop as opposed to a commercial one, you think?
Yes, because it's going to be a single-family dwelling here, so it's going to be a.
I think we need to have a little understanding of exactly where this shed is relative to the edges. In your plans, you've got some drawings of siltation, barriers, et cetera. Are those permanent barriers, or are those just during construction?
So before construction would occur, those would get put in place, and then those would not get removed until the final inspection for the completion of the order of conditions.
So there's no ongoing maintenance required of this siltation? Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks, Dave. Bill?
Is it, the reason for the septic system is there's no sewer on that street?
He's divided, subdividing.
No sewer in town.
Huh?
Rivers over
There's
here.
no capacity.
No, oh, put it on the house, they
Here, I
can't?
guess, but that,
It wasn't
understanding
grandfathered.
that from this
That's gonna be-
drawing.
The septic system, the reason for the septic system is what?
Here you
There's
are.
no sewerage on that street, or no capacity in town for it?
Are they gonna build this up to a road?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't catch all of that, and the mic seemed to be cutting out a little bit.
Okay, the reason for the septic system, is that because there's no capacity in town, or is that because there's no sewerage on the street?
Well, I thought they were, you started talking about this.
So, this road here hasn't actually been constructed yet.
That's the way this is.
They're working on getting all of the different utilities to run through the road. But I don't think there's actually plans for town sewer to be constructed there on the road, so there's no real connection to town sewer there.
They're not showing none of the other houses.
As of right now, it's just grass. So that's why we designed the septic system, and that's why we explicitly made it outside of any sort of buffer zone.
That's where Pat Roach's is.
Straight here,
Now, you said somebody else is building out the street,
it's to the right,
is that,
I guess it's there.
I think it's.
it's not the builder for this property? Who's building it out the street at at this point?
Well, no.
Yeah, I think it was, I apologize. For some reason, the mic's just not fully coming through. So the stream is here, this riverfront flaggings, as well as there's additional wetland flagging here.
Right, but the street, I was asking about the street. You said another group is building out the street. This Barnes Terrace, the extension, that's not done by the builder that's building this house?
Yeah, so this Barnes Terrace Road here, this is the extent of where it's going to go. The paper road is all the way up through the riverfront area, but this is not going to be constructed by us or our client. It's going to be constructed by neighboring lots. What exactly when it's constructed, I'm not entirely sure. I want to say sometime in the summer ish this year.
Okay, another question on the, you did perk tests for the septic system, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that there's going to be town sewage going through the road, so that's why there's a septic system there.
Right. Now, you did perk tests. What's the separation from the bottom of the system to the water table?
Yep. So in this here, from the bottom of the system, there's a 6-foot offset, which there's a 5-foot minimum here. So we were able to keep 6+ feet here.
Okay. And you've got a foundation drain that daylights out into the wetland, is that true?
That's what screwed me up, I thought that was the existing one.
Yes, it goes and it doesn't go all the way into the wetlands. It just kind of exits here by the tree line.
What's this one?
And what are the two trenches up by the workshop building?
So these are the reserve trenches.
It's gotta be here.
This isn't something that will be in use at all. This is just something that if something were to go horribly wrong, and this wouldn't be able to be built here at all, that is what that would be for. As well as, but initially, if this was not able to be built, there is additional reserve trenches that are on top of the Presby system itself. So that would be used first, and then this here would be third resort.
So do you anticipate, when you put the foundation in, any dewatering or anything like that, based on your water table?
No, the foundation drain would catch most, but there would be no dewatering. Any dewatering would be disposed of off-site, and properly disposed of by the contractor itself. But I wouldn't imagine any.
You don't think you'll hit water with the foundation when you install a foundation?
So basement floor is 103. And our estimated season high water table was roughly at 99. So I don't predict any water being hit, since the lowest point is roughly 4 feet above.
Okay. Now, is there a foundation underneath that workshop? Or is that a slab?
I believe that's going to be built on a slab.
Okay. All right, that's all I had right now, Chris.
Thanks, Bill. Mark?
Any trees coming down in the construction area, inside the buffer of the 100-foot or 200-foot?
Nope. So this squiggly line here, this is the current existing tree line here. So all work is well within the tree line, so no trees are planning on being taken down for the construction of this. Me and the commissioner did go out for a site walk, and it is wide open there. There's no trees really anywhere. If anything, there's just going to be an increase in vegetation here with this, because since there's going to be additional no mow zone and more vegetation removal here at all. So this lawn area will be returned back to its normal state.
What are you going to use for permanent markers?
We're going to use just the standard stakes kind of in the ground that are placed every 50 feet that just say basically no mow and no vegetation removal beyond this point.
I'd like to see some low blueberry bushes, something like that, some vegetation, if you could, if the homeowner is in favor of it, as opposed to a block of wood.
Sure. So you'd like to see maybe like a vegetation line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see if that's possible.
Nothing else. I'm good.
Thanks, Mark. Carl?
I'm good. Mark asked my questions.
He beat you to it, huh? All right. David?
So Aiden, has the revised plans and narrative been sent to DEP?
Not yet. It was sent in an email, but they're not necessarily the quickest to respond. So I'm not sure if they've actually seen it yet.
Okay, because I had asked to be CC'd on that email, but
Oh, okay.
be that as it may, and I've spoken to Brian about this, is that my recommendation is that the hearing be continued. pending a response from DEP on the revised plan and narrative. Yeah, there's no guarantee that we'll receive one, but I don't, it shouldn't be a hardship just to keep the hearing open for one more meeting. See if we do get a response that's hopefully favorable, because I'm not sure that they would have approved the plan based on the original submission. Another thing is, and this is something, again, I also spoke with Brian about, is that there really should be management, some management of the runoff from the roof of both the house and the workshop. Maybe I talked a little bit with Brian about a dry well or some sort of underground infiltrator, maybe around the workshop, maybe just a crushed stone fill trench would work. I think if that was the only thing that was needed, I don't think we would necessarily have to keep the hearing open, but if the hearing is going to be kept open, I think there would be enough time to revise the plan to show management of the roof runoff from both of the structures. And then just the one other thing, and I know I asked you this question before, and I apologize, I don't recall the response, or if you had one. So with regard to the system, the septic system, even though it's outside the commission's jurisdiction, are there any approvals that still need to come from the health department?
Yes, so we did receive some comments and we've sent it back. We're still waiting on full approval from them, but all their comments were addressed, and an updated plan was sent to them as well, addressing all the comments. None of the comments necessarily pertained to any differentiating in the actual design itself. Nothing on the layout on the site changed at all. It was more or less kind of general notes and just things they wanted to see in terms of why was this done and can you add this note on the plan. But we are still waiting on final approval from them.
Okay, so the plan we're looking at right now was the one that was submitted to them for their approval? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have anything else, as they say.
David, in this new age of sewer capacity being limited, is it the Board of Health that approves all new sewer connections, no matter where they're located, whether they're within our jurisdiction or not?
I believe it's actually the sewer division of DPW that approves sewer connections, but I believe it's the health department that approves, what you call conventional systems.
So is that something we should see as the application floats around Town Hall?
I think it wouldn't hurt. Again, this system is outside the commission's jurisdiction,
Right.
but I think it's always good to have copies of.
Well, someday we're going to see a septic system that's within our jurisdiction. I just want to
Yep.
make sure I know who gets to approve it.
So Aidan, that would be great if you could provide me with the copies of the correspondence from the health department.
Sure. Would you like to see the approval letter when it comes, or comments? Or all of the above?
Well, how many letters have you gotten from them so far?
Just one.
Okay, you can email me a copy of that, and then the final approval letter as well.
Sure.
All right, well, this is a public hearing, so does anyone from the public have any questions or comments at this stage of the hearing process? If you do, please give us your name and address for the record. All right, I don't hear any public comments or inputs at this point in time on this hearing. It appears that we need to continue this matter to our next meeting, which will be on February 28th. Do we have a motion to continue?
I move we continue the hearing on 20 Elm Street until the meeting of February 28th.
Thanks, Dave.
Second.
Seconded by Mark. Any discussion?
So
Notice-
what do we need from them, Chris? We need them to update the plan for some kind of roof
Yes. Yep.
infiltration?
Yep.
What else?
I heard the blueberry bushes, the little bush blueberry bushes, the issue that Mark raised.
What about the road construction?
I don't know how it gets
It's
this
outside of our
far.
jurisdiction, I think.
I
John.
understand, but I don't know how it gets this far without having a road.
That could be.
Well, my understanding is that the planning board approved the 2 or 3 lot subdivision with the paper road. And Aiden did provide me with a copy of the plan. Again, that was all outside the commission's jurisdiction, but I believe it has been approved. Subdivision was approved by the planning board.
What else do we need? What else we got? We've got, there was some communication with the DEP office,
Yes.
and you needed to be copied on that and get the answers back on that. So we got that outstanding.
So you put on the plan, you're gonna put the blueberry bushes.
Yep,
You're gonna put on the infiltration for the roof,
yeah,
and you're waiting on DEP
letter,
bond, right?
See if we get some comments back from
comments
them.
back.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And if it's a couple days before the hearing and I haven't heard from DEP, I'll contact them and see if they'll tell me anything.
Good. All right, any other discussion before we vote? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, thank you, Aiden. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aiden.
Next, under our regulatory hearings for this evening, is a request for determination of applicability with respect to 250 Apollo Drive, LLC, located at 250 Apollo Drive. We have Thomas Schaumburg / Civil Design Consultants, Inc., representing the applicant. We should also have a legal notice for this one, too, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in room 204 at the Chelmsford Town Offices, 50 Billerica Road, on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, at 7:05 p.m. to consider the request for determination of applicability filed by property owner 250 Apollo Drive LLC for proposed work within 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at 250 Apollo Drive, further identified as Assessor's Map 75, Block 291, Lot 36. The project entails construction of a sediment forebay and associated grading and clearing. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I now have an overview presentation to the commission by the applicant's representative.
Thank you. Again, Tom Schaumburg of Civil Design Consultants, representing 250 Apollo Drive LLC for this request for determination of applicability. The existing site is approximately 10.8 acres in size and is located within the Limited Industrial District, as well as the Community Enhancement and Improvement Overlay District and the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. There is a bordering vegetated wetland located to the east of the parcel. The screen currently is showing the area in question. Within this area, there's an existing drainage basin located between the 100-foot buffer and the 50-foot no building area. The applicant is proposing a 14,000 square foot addition to the parcel. This addition will cause a reconfiguration and a repaving of the existing parking lot. The proposed development will result in a reduction of approximately 800 square feet of impervious surface. A dry well has been sized and is proposed to treat roof runoff from the addition. And then impacts within the 100-foot buffer consist of grading and construction of a sediment forebay for the existing drainage basin. So for this reason, we believe that we are exempt from having to file a notice of intent in accordance with 310 CMR 1002-2 and 1005-6. At this time, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
All right, very good. Why don't we start again from this end of the commission table here? John?
I'm gonna hold off for a minute.
Okay,
Trying
we can come back to
Trying to
you.
put my head around what they're doing here.
All right, we can come back to you. Peter, anything yet?
I'm kind of at the same point.
Okay. All right, move down, Dave?
Yeah, we got economic development, that's what we've got.
Yeah.
Where is the town pumping station relative to the corner of the building?
Relative to the corner of the building, so if you
The
zoom out.
corner of the new addition, I guess, right?
Yeah, so it's somewhere northwest of the new
That's on
addition.
the other side, there'd be the building,
Yeah.
a gully, and then the pumping station, I think.
So it's, here, I'll just move the mic real quick. It's further up in this direction.
Oh, okay. Do you know what's on the other side of that area on Pile Drive?
We have not, no. So I've looked at it briefly. I noticed there's the kind of standing water and the cul-de-sac right near Pile Drive. But as far as what's across Pile Drive, I haven't
What you're
seen
doing
yet.
is not impacting anything on Pile Drive?
No.
I think it's a good, I don't think it needs a,
Okay.
I think we gets an RDA approval
Thanks,
from there.
Dave. Okay, and Bill?
I'm good.
Okay, Mark?
No, I'm all set.
Carl? Anything?
I'm just wondering, this is a draft drawing. Is there a final?
Yeah, it was just a stamp that was left on it, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
But
I don't see a
so-
stamp, engineering stamp, yeah.
So we're still working through with planning and the other departments. So there may be additional revisions, but the impacts within the buffer will remain the same. So this is just taken from that plan set. But I can certainly submit a stamped plan for this.
Yeah, we certainly need a stamped
Yeah.
official plan, yeah.
I'm good.
Good point, Carl, yeah, good. David?
Tom, did you see the cursor here?
Yeah. Yes.
So is this existing pavement right here?
Yes. So we're keeping the existing exit pavement there. So it's going to be I think resurfaced and potentially the curbing might be reset.
Okay.
But it's not anticipated to move any closer to the existing wetlands.
Okay. And I know I'm blind as a bat, but I don't see any erosion control on this. I probably should have let you know that earlier. I mean, there's probably going to be some kind of digging for.
Yeah. So again, I think that might just be it's shown on a different plan. I can provide an updated plan showing the erosion control.
That would be good. So I think this can be a negative determination with conditions. I think, again, sort of the standard conditions with, installation of erosion control, et cetera. But I also think, because I know the commission has raised the concern with reporting on stormwater management, infrastructure management, maintenance reporting. I would then recommend putting that as a condition in the determination as well as, and I have seen the stormwater report. I mean, it does provide for the regular maintenance, inspections and maintenance and reporting. I just would put a condition in there that the commission be sent those reports.
David, does the existing building require a stormwater management report, do you know?
Not that I know of. That doesn't
Been there,
mean.
that building's been there a while.
Has been there a long time, so it may have been constructed before the stormwater management standards were adopted. I don't recall this being on the list of, projects with orders of conditions that were required to comply with the stormwater standards. Certainly something I can check, but I don't think so.
Okay. Any more questions, comments from commissioners at this point?
It's kind of hard to make much determination on getting this a couple minutes ago,
I saw it the other day.
You can read this from your laptop?
Yeah.
Do we need to continue this till we get the,
We could certainly
Plan with the
continue it till we
revisions.
get the revised plan and there's some open items.
Now that we talk about it, there's questions that are coming up now that I'm,
Yeah.
like snow plowing, snow removal.
Well, that's
Remember
what I'm
now,
wondering.
the question on the table is, does this application require an IDA or a notice of intent? an RDA requirement is far less intrusive than a notice of intent, so.
It is a public hearing, so if anybody from the public has any questions or comments for us right now, please, raise your hand, let us know. Okay, no public questions or comments on this hearing. There's some open items, so if we want to, we could continue it to our next meeting on the 28th. They still have some other processes that are going on in parallel, so I don't see a detriment to that. And again, we might have some more questions that come to mind over the next week or two that we could address when we come back in 2 weeks, so. Mark, if you want to make a motion to continue, it certainly
I would like to make a
be out of
motion to
line.
continue
Yeah,
till next meeting.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Mark's got a motion, we get John a second on that?
Second that.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, well, we'll see you in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. All right, so that takes us past our first two regulatory items. David, I think you said there was a matter you wanted to jump to next?
Yes, there's been a request to take the hearings out of order and to take 270 Billrica Road in front of Riverneck Road. My understanding is that, or I expect the hearing to be brief. You there, Katie?
Did the people at 250, the other people agree?
Well, I let them know they didn't disagree.
Katie, is it fair, it's anticipated it's a fairly brief,
Yeah, can we do, I have that in 314, right? Just quickly before.
Well, I didn't discuss that with Chris about doing 314.
Oh, okay.
oh, let's see how we do right now then, okay? Which one would you prefer to do first?
It doesn't matter.
All right, let's do the, let's do the 270 then.
Okay. Let me give you, and actually, you can just bring up the plan. I just brought a little plan just to,
Oh, so you didn't bring your laptop?
I did. Do you want me to bring it up? I can bring it up. It'll just take me a second. I can give you these to pass around. And this is just an exhibit that I was going to show you that just helps describe the change in 270 and how much of it was in the 100-foot. And take one and pass it around while I hook up.
And so for the record, folks, this is a notice of intent continued from July 26, 2022. The DH Property Holdings LLC, we're located at 270 Billrica Road. And
Okay, so I'm going to have to switch my screen to you,
It's going to take
hopefully.
me a minute to boot up.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Is it okay if I sit here? Yeah? Okay. While this is booting. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. It's been a while since we were here for 270 Billrica Road. Essentially, last fall, we felt we were in a pretty good place. And actually, our client asked us to take a step back because they had, during the process of permitting, they had received the economics of the project, which did not look good for a multitude of reasons. So we've been working with them to try to figure out, basically do some value engineering. Really wasn't much we could do at all, honestly. See if it'll let me log in. It's just gonna be all the security codes we have now.
Oh, this is another, that's irrelevant.
Essentially, not much changed on the plan, except we made the building a little bit bigger. It's bigger by 8,500 square feet. A very small portion of it is in the 100-foot buffer. As you can see on the left-hand side of that plan, the area that's hatched in dark is, here we go. The new area within the 100-foot buffer. Essentially, the right-hand side of the plan, outside the buffer, changed a little bit more, and that was to add parking necessary to basically take care of the 8,500 square feet that we added in addition. Because you guys get to see everything.
What do you want me to turn you off?
There we go. 270.
Is this considered redevelopment?
It is, because it actually, even though we added square footage to the building and square footage to the parking lot, we're still less than the pre-development on the lot for impervious based on what's there. So you can see we changed, we added this little piece of building, we added this piece of building here, and then you can see the outline of the old parking lot and the outline of the new parking lot. We're still less than what's paved out there. It's less than 1,000 square feet different, but we're still less. So in doing that, we had to increase our infiltration to meet the phosphorus requirement, because phosphorus goes hand in hand with the amount of impervious surface. So we updated that portion of the drainage system. Everything's been sent to Beta, who reviewed it on behalf of the commission and also the planning board. And we have a letter from Phil Paradis with Beta that's been submitted to the commission. We were at planning board last week. Planning board did approve the project, and they're reviewing the conditions of their next meeting. And so with that, if you have any additional questions, I know Phil had mentioned some conditions which we're agreeable to. And one of them being making sure we showed inspection cords on the underground system. I think the other ones all had to do with NIPD's permit needing to be filed, stormwater pollution prevention plan, essentially everything that happens after a project is permitted before it goes to construction.
Standard conditions.
David, if you can just refresh my memory, I know it's been a while since they were here before, but your comments?
I think this looks good. I think the hearing can be closed tonight, or at least I don't see any reason why the hearing needs to be kept open. And the commission issue an order of conditions. You know, say it's gone through extensive peer review.
Okay. All right, commissioners, questions, comments? Dave, your hand went up
So
first.
your applicant agrees with all of Beta's comments?
It's true.
You don't dispute any of them? A bunch of the applications we've seen tonight are all calling for straw wattles. I thought we'd done away with those, because we didn't want straw in the site. And this one does, and there's I think two or three others call out straw. Is there a new kind of straw wattle that's not got bad stuff in the straw?
Well, I don't think the straw was the concern. I think it was when they were hay. Hay.
Isn't hay straw?
No, it's different.
The hay bales, yeah, the hay bales were the problem.
Hay is not straw?
Correct. Straw is
No,
not hay.
hay is hay.
Well, then I just learned something. You're out.
Hay is hay, straw is straw.
Does that help?
No, it doesn't help.
No, well, second crop has no weed seed in it,
Well, that's the point I'm getting to. I want to make sure there are no weeds in the
Right.
straw.
but, right.
Okay. I don't want any weeds in the straw. You can use all the straw you want.
Something new every day.
You're adding 9,000 square feet?
8,500 square feet to the building.
What's the change in impervious?
It was 8,500, I don't know off the top of my head.
So there's less
Still less than exists there today.
than exists today, although it's probably more, but it's less than the current site.
It's less than the current site.
What's the distance from the edge of wetlands to the parking and the driveway? And are you going to require waivers?
So, let me open that plan.
Right there in the corner is that's the closest spot, I think.
I believe this is the 25, I believe we're within the 25 in one place.
Yeah, but you're
Let me
inside.
open,
But you're closer than 50.
we're closer than 50, absolutely. Not the building, though, the building's out of the 50.
But just the impervious.
The impervious is definitely
That's
within.
okay.
Yeah.
And
we
you think,
basically
and that's
maintain-
outside of 25?
We basically maintained
Okay.
what's there today. I was just gonna check that one space on. I didn't do my full refresher. Let's see. Oh, I'm terrible at using this without a mouse. Let's see. So we're definitely within the 30, a little bit with the pavement right in this area here. You can
That's
see the
okay for
30.
impervious.
And
It's
then-
25 for no disturb, right?
Just checking the 25. I think we might be in it actually up here at the outlet.
Is it a temporary for construction, or is it a permanent?
So we're in it a little bit here with permanent. Sorry, I don't know where that's here. I'll have to be there. And, oh. Of course, it's gonna go. And then here we're in the 25 with the new outlet, which is essentially in the same location as the old outlet.
The driveway behind the building, has the fire department signed off on it?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the driveway behind it constructed of, asphalt?
It is asphalt, and it's 20 feet, because it needs to be plowed, and it's gonna be used all year. But it's 20 feet in width, which is the smallest width we could have for fire access. But it is allowed for two-way traffic, two from one side of the building to the other.
Okay, just refresh my memory, it's not a conservation question. The traffic counts, how many vehicles a day?
It's definitely not a
Pull up the traffic
conservation
study.
question.
No, but the reason
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We had done a new traffic, no, we had done a new trip gen memo based on the revision. And total trips.
It's in one of your schedules.
Yep.
There it is. I can't read it, though. Was it
Daily, 418
400 trips, round trip,
in and out, yeah.
in and out per day?
Mhm.
I wonder, just as an aside, how that compares with the traffic on River Neck Road.
Just as an
That's all-
aside.
That's the only question I have. That's 400 round trips is a long time. Granted, that's a much better location
Yeah.
for distribution
Yeah.
than River Neck Road is, but it's still a lot of trips.
So we
That's all.
also, I think we have somewhere around like 400 parking spaces and 100,000 square feet office for the existing building. That's empty there
yeah.
today, and so we're reducing that to 100.
Oh, Blue River Road's great for development.
181 parking spaces and just over 90,000.
That's all I had, Chris.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else, questions for?
So,
Dave?
Katie, do you need a waiver to build that structure, to redo the structure?
You need a 25-foot waiver for those two spots.
For doing the structure, or is it for the paving
No
also?
impervious.
For the,
I mean, no disturbance, I'm sorry.
right, the no disturbance. We
Right,
need it
right.
for the outlet from the drainage, and we need it just in that one section of driveway. I can go back to.
So you would also need the
30
30-foot for the
That's-
driveway.
That's correct.
So you need
It's right
30-foot
here.
and 25-foot for the driveway, 25-foot for the outlet.
Right.
Other questions, comments from the commission? No. This is a public hearing, so if anybody from the public has any questions or comments on this matter, please identify yourself. I think we have a question here coming up, sir.
Hi, Chris LaValle, 10 Edgewood Street, Precinct 10, Town Meeting Rep. The one concern I have is that it seems like this project was categorized not as a land use with higher potential pollutant load, whereas the other warehouse in town was. And this seems to be a higher potential use than the other warehouse. It also has an unknown tenant, so I didn't know if there was going to be hazardous materials in there. And then there's also fleet parking on site for the trailers. So to me, all of those things combined make this a potential to have a higher potential pollutant load, which would increase the requirements for the stormwater. So my question is, why is it not?
That's a good question. Let's see if we can get an answer for you, Mr. LaValle. Okay, I know we've had,
Looking at the exact language, but it basically, it doesn't meet the definition based on how DEP defines that, and it's based on number of trips per day and the type of use. And Beta agreed that it wasn't. Let me find the exact, it's in the stormwater management standards.
Mr. LaValle, you're welcome to come back up to the mic again.
Thank you.
When you talk about the other warehouse, you're talking about River Neck Road?
Yes, yeah. That one is categorized as a potential high pollutant load.
It's probably. I believe it's 1,000 trips per day, and they would certainly probably have closer to 1,000. If we have 400 at a third of the size, it would make sense that that might have
So-
over 1,000.
According to the EPA site that I saw, land use with higher potential pollutant load definition is land uses such as auto salvage yards, auto fueling facilities, exterior fleet storage yards, vehicle service and equipment cleaning areas, commercial parking lots with high-intensity use, which a trucking road to me is a high-intensity use, road salt storage areas, outdoor storage and loading areas of hazardous substances. Again, the loading docks are right next to the wetlands, so we don't know what that's going to have. Confined disposal facilities and disposal sites, marinas, boatyards, or other uses identified by the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. So although traffic is one component, there are many others that could impact the classification.
Thank you, Peter. You had something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I was going to bring that up as well, more as a question. And in my homework, I think the definition is a little bit vague. And Katie, I'd be happy if you came up with some better language, but I thought the 1,000 trips was the MIPA threshold.
No, it's actually in the DEP guidance.
Is it in there in the guidance if we looked harder?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you look at basically the documenting compliance section for standard 5, it actually goes into paragraphs of descriptions for this, but
Yeah.
it basically says, was one of them, of course I just lost it when I skimmed up. Parking lots with high-intensity uses, 1,000 vehicle trips per day or more. Shopping centers, malls, large office areas have high-intensity use parking lots. Disposal facilities, does say fleet storage areas, but this isn't, there's parking for 11 tractor-trailer trucks on this site. It's not a tractor-trailer distribution facility where it's the whole place is tractor-trailer trucks. There's 180 parking spaces for cars.
Yeah, that's as far as I got, is what is the definition of a fleet storage facility?
There's no number associated.
There's no, I didn't find any definition.
I mean, it could be 10 vehicles, it could be 500 vehicles.
Does that give this commission the authority to make that judgment of what constitutes fleet storage?
That's a good question. Good question. I don't know.
Well, so, I mean, DEP didn't flag that, and certainly Beta also agreed with us based on their peer review. I mean, what that means to be a higher potential pollutant load is the type of pretreatment we use for drainage. Doesn't mean that it's not
Right.
allowed. And I believe the engineering department had already requested that we have shut-offs installed on the catch basins behind the building adjacent to the loading docks, to prevent any, if there were any kind of spill of any kind of fluid, I guess, back there, that could be
Right.
handled and shut off before it would get into the treatment system associated with the underground drainage.
Do you think, and again, I apologize for lack of my knowledge, if we dove into the regs on the higher pollutant loading, would your BMPs, your stormwater controls, pretty much be the same? I guess that would be the question I would ask. You know, what's the difference in the controls stormwater controls that you're proposing, if it were viewed as a high pollutant load?
Right.
I mean, are they the same? They might be, you know this better than I. What would the difference be?
So, treatment, pre-treatment, deep sum catch basins, which is what we're using.
You're using, right.
Oil grit separators, proprietary separators, which we're using, sediment forebays, and vegetated filter strips. Then it goes on to treatment, sand filters, organic filters, proprietary media filters, which is what we're using.
Right.
Filtering bioretention areas, extended dry detention basins, we're not using that.
Well, those are examples. I mean, they're not all required.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole list.
Yeah, I went through that, yeah.
But essentially, we're using deep sump hooded catch basins, we're using proprietary filters and before infiltration, And on the right side and on the left side, we're using a rain guardian, which is an inlet to essentially a filter before it gets into the ground,
Right.
so.
Katie, all the loading docks are on the right side in
all
that
the
shaded
lo-
area?
That's correct.
And the truck parking is these long spots, right?
Yeah, there's just, there's the spots right there.
Is this
The
whole
long
thing
spots.
curbed?
Yep.
Okay. Peter?
Well, I guess I'm done.
All right, well, I
I'd
see
personally
another
be
member from the public
yeah.
wanting to
Yeah.
address us, so.
Hi, I'm Ruth Luna, 10 Carter Drive. I just had one quick thing to add is that because of the infiltration, this project would have to register with the Underground Injection Control Program, so I just would want to be sure that you make sure the applicant does that.
Thank you, Ruth. Any other public questions, input? Any more commission questions, input?
I just said, nothing changed with the snow storage, right? From the original?
No.
Because Casey had a lot of snow storage.
Right, yeah, that's on the layout materials plan, so it shows the snow storage, yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
but
much.
there's nothing here.
Right, not on this sheet. No, this was meant to just be
Right. I know that was covered very
a little
extensively.
bit easier to read, right?
Yeah,
So the snow storage areas are all in the layout
All right.
materials plans.
okay.
We're not approving this plan.
No, that's just one page of it.
Right.
But that was just
what are
to
we
help
looking
you
for?
tonight, that's all.
What
It's a
are you looking
presentation.
for tonight?
I think they're looking for us to close the hearing tonight.
Right, yeah, you have this full package in front of you already. This was just an exhibit to help you show what's changed in the jurisdictional areas, which is just that little sliver of building that was added.
Well, if we're gonna approve, we're gonna approve with having a full set of plans.
Absolutely.
That's what you have. You have that.
This has been changed by, because you scaled back from what you originally were gonna want to do here. Is that
No,
correct?
we've made it bigger.
8,500 feet bigger.
We've added.
Okay.
So the
They've made it
plans,
bigger
the
and
plans were
changed
submitted to the
parking.
commission probably a month ago, the new plans, and they were sent out to Beta for review. And this is the same plan that Beta reviewed.
Peter, you have a comment?
Yeah, Mark, I'm thinking of your blueberry comment on the previous applicant. I mean, is there any way to get some additional plantings where the buffer zone is being disturbed? And I'm aiming that question at the commission as much as,
I believe, David, we
Anybody?
issued it, and you
Yes.
reminded me today, we did issue an
Yes,
invasive
an
removal and
invasive,
planting
an invasive
plan.
management plan was submitted
yeah.
with the notice of intent, so.
And is there
that's-
any encouragement that we can offer the applicant to plant some stuff along the wetland to sort of restore some habitat value?
That's the entire area essentially outside of the project that we are looking at doing the invasive management and planting.
I mean, theoretically, if the invasives are removed, that the native plants should come back on their own.
Yeah, yeah, I
Theoretically.
have some experience with that happening and not.
That's the next one. Hans.
Okay.
All right, so I mean, our choice as commission this evening is we can either close the hearing tonight, take a vote to close the hearing, and, or we could continue this matter if there's more information that the commission
that one?
wants to get between now and our next meeting.
That's Dunstable Road, the one with the,
It's not in the agenda.
yeah.
David, I assume your recommendation is we close the hearing tonight.
Yes, I think that the hearing can be closed and an order of conditions issued. I do have some ideas for some special conditions to include. We can talk about that.
You get 2 waivers, too. Right.
We'd have to vote on 2 waivers, exactly. Determine hardship and vote for the 2 waivers after we close the hearing. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move we close the hearing for 270 Billerica
All
Road.
right, motion by Mr. McLaughlin, close the hearing. We need a second in order to have a vote.
Second.
All right, Bill, on the second. All right, discussion before we vote?
David, will we have a chance to talk about the proposed conditions, or is that something that you'll put together?
If the commission closes the hearing, then there can be a motion to issue an order of conditions and then talk about the special conditions at that point.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
All right.
You need to vote on the waivers first, right?
We'd have to, close the hearing, and then we'd have to vote on the waivers, and then, vote on the order of conditions, special conditions, that type of thing. Yep, that's how it would flow. All right, well, how many, let's see, all those in favor of the motion to close the hearing? Please raise your hand.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, so unanimous, we closed the hearing. Now we would have to talk about the waivers, the two waivers.
We need to consider waiving the 25-foot no disturbance in two locations.
Yeah.
Corner of the building where the road is, and an outflow site, right?
And
And we need to waive a 30-foot no impervious at the same corner of the building where there's a driveway. Normally, I would be against both of them. I think these are minor. I think there is a significant overall improvement in the site, which would offset the fact that those two areas are being jeopardized.
I mean, I'd agree with Dave's statement, yeah.
I'd agree too, especially if we can have some bushes. Or, as David might recommend, because.
All right, so Dave, do you want to make a motion then that we waive that 25 and the 30-foot setbacks for this project?
I move we issue a, no, we don't issue.
Oh, we waive, yeah, we'd have to waive.
We
the
waive
25.
the 25-foot no disturbance at two locations, on the driveway at the edge of the building and at the outflow.
Second.
Do you want a separate vote on the 30? Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
do
so we
the
have a motion on the
25-foot.
25-foot waiver.
Second.
Bill on the second. Any discussion before we vote? All those in favor, aye. Any opposed, unanimous. All right, so that was the 25-foot, now the 30-foot.
I move we waive the 30-foot no impervious at the same corner of the building where we waived the 25-foot no disturbance.
So I get a motion by Dave McLaughlin on the 30-foot waiver, and then Bill, a second on
Second.
that
Yep.
as well. So it's Bill in the second. Any discussion? None?
How many square feet is that about? Do you know?
I have no idea.
No.
It's not significant, but,
You can get that to me.
what's that? I can get that to you, yes.
I'll make sure that's in the order of conditions.
All those in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Unanimous. All right, so those are the waivers. Now, we would have to just have a motion for an order of conditions. And then, David, why don't you suggest some special conditions for us to entertain?
Okay, so I think my main concern, and I actually brought this up, I think might have been at the first session of the hearing. It's been my experience, and I've personally witnessed the way in some of these facilities, the way the interior of the loading bays are maintained, that I've seen where just a cleaning agent is poured on the floor, and then a hose is taken to it, and then it's just aimed to the exterior of the building, so that there's a combination of the cleaning agent and whatever it's taking up off the floor of the loading bay goes right outside into the parking lot. So I think that's something that really needs to be prevented. And I know that kind of maintenance is not included in the operation and maintenance plan. So I've been thinking about the best way to try and handle that, and I think probably certainly one thing to do would be to put a special condition in requiring submission of an interior operation maintenance plan, or at least some kind of a cleaning plan for the interior of the bays, and just to make sure that there's nothing that would allow.
Why not just not allow the blowing of any materials from inside the
I
distribution
think
center
that
to the
too.
parking lot?
I think that as well, that no outflow from the cleaning of the interior of the bays be allowed to exit, you know, go into the exterior of the building. Yeah, I think that too. But I would just like to see it verified that won't be the case, you know, you know, there must be some sort of plan that's submitted.
Why can't you make them put an oil separator at the
Well,
doors?
It's not just oil.
No, but anything that's gonna
Oh.
catch and collect.
Right.
I mean, anything, oh, I can't talk.
Just
I
tell
mean,
them
you
they
might
can't
go in
blow
there
it
if you had a
outside.
full
I
set
think
of
it'd be better
plans.
just to not allow any sort of flow outside of the
Might be
building.
already
Yep.
in a full set of plans.
That's gonna be a hard one to enforce.
Well,
So is the oil separator.
potentially,
They're in
but,
place, they have
I know,
to
but you
work.
could avoid them.
I mean, I guess I would look at it that it would be no more difficult to enforce than the submission of regular inspection and maintenance reports for stormwater management systems.
I do kind of like Bart's idea of the oil separator myself.
Interior plumbing has to go to the sewer. It can't go to the drainage.
No, it's a collector. It's held in tanks outside. It's like having a.
Oh,
at a
you're
gas
talking about a
station.
tight tank.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But that's not being proposed on the plan.
No.
It's not our jurisdiction, so.
Well, but if it's in the buffer zone, it is.
Well, your concern is stuff being washed outside the building, from inside to outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going onto the
Right.
parking lot and potentially entering the stormwater management system.
Right.
That's the concern. So I just think the best way to prevent that is to prohibit it. You know.
Yeah, I support that.
And in that regard, are there any other concerns that we would want to talk about on spills? Since we're not entirely sure what the trucks are doing or hauling? Spills in the truck bay, or, you know, drum falls off the loading dock or whatever.
I know we
Can't-
touched upon that the first time Casey presented this, and there was discussion of that.
I think theoretically, the stormwater management system should be designed to accommodate that. Now, I guess, I don't know, I guess we can't ask Katie this question. I mean, there must be some upper limit that the system can accommodate. I mean, if a fuel tank of one of the trucks suddenly ruptures and there's a major spill, I mean, there actually is a standard condition that handles that, you know, under the Massachusetts contingency plan and related.
Right.
Actually, there's a long-term pollution prevention plan that will be done for this project too, which covers all of that as part of our NIPD's permit, so.
Right, now the long-term plan goes to EPA, is that right, Katie? And do we have any jurisdiction over that plan?
The long-term pollution
Yeah.
prevention plan? Well, yeah, I mean, it's part of, it's required to be submitted as part of the stormwater standards.
Okay.
And again, that's a standard condition that both the operation and maintenance plan and the long-term pollution prevention plan are actually incorporated into the order of conditions, you know, by reference.
And it's
Right,
expanded
but-
on further.
Right, but my question is, do we have the authority to offer suggestions or comments on both the O&M plan for the stormwater system and the long-term pollution
Well,
prevention plan? In other words, that would be a place to capture some of these questions, if we had that role.
Yeah, I mean, it really should have been brought up while the hearing was open. I mean, I mean, there certainly can be special conditions which require that the long-term pollution prevention plan be modified, you know, in any way that the commission would like to see it. But, you know, certainly our peer reviewer didn't flag any deficiency. I mean, if you have those ideas, I'd certainly be interested in hearing them. I mean, do you have anything specific in mind that you'd like to see.
Well, I don't know if now's the right time to talk about this, me being the new guy, but in reviewing some of the, not for this project, but for some of the other O&M plans and long-term pollution prevention plans that I've seen come before this commission or be part of some of the projects, the ones I've seen are very vague.
Right, it
They
gets
kind of say things like, don't spill stuff.
Yeah, no, the document that we end up submitting along with the NIPDs is hundreds of pages long.
Yeah.
And it's it talks about all of this. And that can be something, I mean, typically it's a requirement to submit that to the engineering department when it's done, because it's not typically done until a contractor is chosen for a project, because
Right.
it lists the contractor.
Yeah, and all I'm saying.
Methodology.
Yeah, and the only idea I'm presenting here is that in terms of our role, the wetlands, obviously those plans have a big impact on wetland protection. So again, apologies being the new guy, I'm not clear on what our role is in reviewing the O&M and the pollution prevention plan and offering, or having an opportunity to add a few features.
Well, I mean, that opportunity is there. Again, I think it would have been best to discuss it during the hearing, but.
Got it.
If you have any specific ideas, well, I mean, best if you can bring them up now, but you can let me know. But in any case, I mean, the order of conditions will explicitly require compliance with both. In the sense that they'll actually be a part of the order of conditions.
All right. And again, I don't want to sidetrack the hearing here as the new guy, so I'll talk to you later.
All right. So we're at the point now where we could have a motion for, excuse me, an order of conditions with special conditions listed.
Did we list all the conditions?
Well, we got at least two that I heard of from David here.
The bush.
Not the bushes.
Do you have
That
more?
was the last.
What's that?
Do you have more?
Well, the only other thing that I would have mentioned is the invasives. That there are some special conditions pertaining to the invasive management.
I think this is the time to put everything out, because we've been caught before where something's wasn't in the order of conditions and or was talked about and wasn't put in, so.
I mean, we can continue this to our next meeting and have David, prepare these conditions in writing, present them to us. We want to be, more formal about it.
That's what they do in the planning board.
That's what we used to do when I was back in planning board. We used to do that with a more formal process.
I think this project is big enough for that.
I would be in favor of that.
I don't want to see the same ambiguity that we've had in the past.
Yeah.
We just kind of wing it and didn't come out in our favor.
So you'd like to see a draft of the special conditions?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the hearing's closed, okay? So we can't take any more public input or anything of that nature, but we can have our agent come back to us with a draft of special conditions for us to review and discuss and then vote at our next meeting,
When's your next meeting?
the 28th.
So is this motion to issue withdrawn?
Oh, well,
didn't have a
we didn't have a motion to issue an order of conditions. We had a motion to close the hearing,
Yeah.
which was unanimous. Then we had the motions on the 25 and the 30-foot waivers, so those were
We're in the
approved.
process of forming a motion. but-
Exactly, but nobody's actually made a motion yet. Yeah.
So that motion will be made at the next meeting.
So I move we continue the hearing on,
Not the hearing.
of 270 Billrick Road until February 28th.
It's not a hearing, though.
So, yeah, so we're continuing our discussion of order of conditions until the next meeting on the 28th.
So, yeah, so I move that we continue our discussion of the order of conditions on 228.
Okay.
Dave's going to put together the order of conditions for us to review on the
Conservation
28th.
agent, right.
Right. All right, so we'll go with Carl on the motion, and we need a second on that motion.
Second.
Bill on the second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good, thanks.
Thank you. If I may, I can't stay until after Riverneck, so should I continue 314?
Tell me about the certificate that you want. Tell us about the certificate that you wanted.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Katie Enright with Howard Stein Hudson. I submitted a request for a certificate of compliance for 314 Dunstable Road, which is now known as Nabnasset. There are 6 single-family houses. There is a stream crossing. I've met with David about it. There's some work that we need to do. I would like to make sure that when I give the list back to the applicant and developer as to what they need to do to kind of get us to the finish line, that we encompass everything. So I would just ask that the commission please review the as-built plans and the proposed plans that were submitted. Specifically, David and I are going to work with my client and the wetland scientist on how the stream was reconstructed in the area where the old driveway used to sit. So the old driveway came out, and actually the design plans and the order didn't propose anything where the driveway came out. It was just not shown. So the contractor put it back together with the help of a wetland scientist, with plantings in the stream bank. David's been out to look at it. Isn't thrilled with the way it was done.
I can, it'd probably be good if I brought the plan up quickly.
Oh, I can bring it
Yeah,
up
but
too.
we still have a lot in front of us on the agenda, so I would suggest we continue this to the 28th.
And I would just request that before then, if the commission could please review all the documentation and let me know at that time if there are any questions and concerns that I can take back with me after that, that's all.
Well, you know mine.
I know yours.
You know mine well.
Right. So we're going to start working on those
Yeah.
2 items specifically, and if the commission can please let me know on the 28th if there's any questions, comments, concerns on the 28th. I don't anticipate we're going to close for a couple of meetings. I just wanted to start the
Okay.
process.
Very
Okay.
good. Hey, thanks, Katie.
With that, I will see you on the 28th.
You bet. We'll
Thank you
move-
very much.
Move on to our
Okay.
agenda
I
here.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My daughter appreciates it too. She's at her friend's house waiting for me to pick her up. Thank you.
And you don't want to bring her?
Like it.
No.
She might have learned a lot here tonight.
Having much more fun where she is.
All right. Notice of intent under the regulatory hearings. DIV Riverneck LLC continued from January 10, 2023 for 191, 195, 199, and 201 Riverneck Road. The Zechariah, Chornyak, and Ty and Bond representing the applicants. Ladies and gentlemen, David, what was that?
Oh, I didn't see them out there,
They're
but
coming in. They're coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank everyone for their patience this evening. I know it's been a long night up to this point, but we really do appreciate everyone patiently waiting for this hearing. And the commissioners, again, we're all hanging in there for a long night.
so Kevin, you can hook up your laptop
Hook up to there, great.
to that cable.
So, yeah, what we'll do is we'll follow kind of our typical format tonight. We'll have an overview from the applicant, kind of bringing us up to speed on what's happening, kind of educating commissioners on any changes or any recent developments. Then we'll have an opportunity for the commissioners to ask questions, and then we'll turn again to the public and make sure the public has input, questions that can be addressed this evening. So we'll just follow that, and we'll try to, again, focus on the wetlands issues that we're concerned about, focus on the stormwater issues, focus on our interest in protecting the town water supply and dealing with the wetlands issues versus some of the other issues that might be covered with some other boards. So all yours for now.
Great, thanks. I'm Zach Chornyak from Ty and Bond, representing the applicant tonight, site civil engineer for the project. While Kevin's getting set up here, just a few things real quick. We've submitted the revised site design to you folks and application associated with that. Kevin's prepared a presentation tonight to walk through kind of the specifics of the treatment train and stormwater system in some more detail and more organized fashion. I think, a lot of the questions that might come up from you folks might be answered as he goes through the presentation. So, I like that you can hold questions until the end of the presentation. That would be great. That said, a couple housekeeping things. We're aware that Coughlin Engineering Company, or I forget the exact name of it, but they're the peer reviewer for the soils, has been selected, and we're coordinating with them to figure out when we can actually do the soil tests. Obviously, we've got to coordinate with an excavator with that company as well, so we're aware that's not completed yet and will be, part of the review process. As part of the planning board process also, they have these new designs as well. Beta Engineering Company, did the original stormwater peer review. We're coordinating the peer review with them as well on the planning board process. So there is some redundancies, but it's all being double checked and triple checked. Just letting you guys know that is still in process as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin when he's ready here to go through the presentation. We did bring hard copies as well, if you want to pass these out. Is there a question?
Is there another beta review of the changes?
Yeah, there'll be, yeah.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Do you want to pass out those hard copies? Just so
those
you
are
have
great.
them?
Helpful, we brought hard copies.
We appreciate that.
Backup plan
Honestly.
for,
Some of us are very challenged with looking at these plans on our computers and fine print, so
Thank you.
having documents like that are very helpful. Appreciate it.
and if it's also helpful, we have
Thank you.
We have boards that we could set up if there's a convenient spot, if that would
That might be good, too.
feel a good, good viewing for some.
That might be good. The audience might want to take a look as well, too. And in fact, if we have an extra copy, it'd be good to circulate it around with
Thank you.
some of the folks out there.
Thank you.
Actually, I don't need one, you can give it to them.
You actually pass them around. Do you have a preference on which direction the boards face, or?
What are you showing?
It's gonna be the same as what's on the screen.
Point it to them.
I have it over here. Give it a different viewing angle.
Yeah, good, thanks. That's a good spot.
Good evening. My name's Kevin McCutcheon with Ty and Bond, civil engineer involved with the project. We submitted last week a revised set of drawings, full drawing set, and a full stormwater management report. The major changes involved with that were, for one, on the frontage of the property, revising the driveway configuration to a single driveway point, and adjusting the parking spaces, and so that then carries through to revisions of grading and drainage, structure, location, and so forth. We've also added the wellhead protection zone on all the drawing sheets that shows up on to address a comment from Chelmsford Water District. We've added landscaping, plantings to the stormwater surface basin, so the rain garden on the front of the property and the bioretention system in the back of the property. And we have added some EV parking space and bicycle space locations, just as some general additions to the plans. But our presentation today was going to focus primarily on the stormwater management side of things, similar to what was presented last time, with some little more detail on some of the aspects and updates for the recent changes. So what we have on the screen and the boards here, the first sheet is the existing conditions, the existing site. A similar slide was shown last time. This again just represents the two existing buildings that are on the site now. The orange being areas of the existing site that have no existing stormwater management features. Primarily the eastern two of the existing buildings. That site was built in the 80s without stormwater management at that time. The blue shaded area is the more recently built western building, which does have some level of existing stormwater management, but wouldn't be up to current day standards. There's infiltration, below ground infiltration just on the north side of that existing building. And the stormwater management pond, the surface pond up adjacent to the north property line in the adjacent wetlands. But pretty minimal existing stormwater management features. One thing I want to note is the existing basin, the bottom elevation of that basin is about elevation 102, just for reference as we go through the proposed design. That's existing basin is significantly lower than the proposed basins, and that generally has the outfall is a little over 103 and a half in that range. So generally a foot and a half of elevation between the outlet and the bottom of the basin for wet basin there. I'll flip to the next slide. Oh, this has a microphone here.
Yeah, that's live too. I can use that if it's, either way.
Sit down. Could sit down and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Sit down, be more comfortable.
Okay, and this will help with pointing to if you, you should be able to see the cursor as I go. So this is you're hearing me through the mic, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
This is a similar graphic of the proposed site. Flipping briefly back and forth, there's a good percentage of orange untreated stormwater management on the existing site, and that is significantly minimized in the proposed site. So the proposed design is capturing runoff from all the new impervious areas and going through various treatment trains, stormwater management, which I'll go through in detail in the future slides.
So you're saying that right now, approximately half of the stormwater from those combined sites is untreated, roughly, based on the geography.
In the existing case.
Not based on volume, right?
Correct.
And it looks like maybe 95% on that other is treated.
100% of the new impervious area is, and yeah, in the 90-something range. That orange area is all.
On the first, go back a slide.
Sure.
On that slide, where does the untreated stormwater flow now?
The main outlet from the site is a 36-inch pipe discharging right about where my cursor is. It's in between the two buildings, right at the north, right near where the divide is.
Right, yeah, and that's the outlet that we all saw, I think, in the site.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Correct.
So 50%
Right up in the.
of the untreated and some portion of the treated is going to that pipe now?
No, all of the treated discharges.
Sorry, you're gonna have to refresh my memory.
Sure. All of the treated comes out of the existing stormwater management basin at a different pipe at this location here, which is about north of the center of that western building.
Long story short, what I'm trying to get at is today, some percentage of water goes into the wetlands to the northwest.
Correct.
In your proposal, a different percentage of water is going to go to the northwest.
Yes.
What's the relative difference between the two of them? How much less or how much more? It's probably less. How much less of that water is going northwest to the wetlands as compared to existing conditions?
So we could take a look at analysis point 1 on this plan is our total of what discharges to that wetland area, but we also have on our table the I have to close out so I can zoom in on that. We have a table of just the 36-inch pipe. Oh, not too far there. So that will give us the difference between those two will give us the, what you're asking for here. So the table on the third slide, the two tables on the third slide, in the table on the left, table 2, is peak flows in the various storm events, 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events. In existing analysis point 1, there is, it's essentially equivalent. In a 2-year storm event, the peak is not different between the 36-inch and what in total goes to that wetland area. That would, without having all the details of the models in front of me, that would tell me that there is a large peak going through the 36-inch pipe, and what enters in the existing stormwater basin from the other site is held back long enough that the peak doesn't line up between the two. So the absolute peak is just from the eastern site. There would be outflow from the western site, but it's after the peak goes through. And not until you get to the larger storms do you start seeing a difference between those values. But you can see it's nearly all, let's see, so 36 and a half CFS compared to 41 CFS. So there's 5 CFS in the 100-year storm, the largest that we analyze, that discharges out of that to the northwest of the site.
Not much difference.
It's not not until you get to the bigger storms that you start seeing a bigger difference.
But in the 5, 10, 20-year storms, it's about the same amount of water going to the wetlands under the development as existing conditions.
Well, no, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that.
I'm trying to understand, I don't want a lot of numbers. I want to know, is it 50% better? Is it 10% better?
right in the table.
Is it 80% worse?
It's 10% better, isn't it? Am I reading this table right, at the 100-year flood, 100-year storm?
I mean, the difference gets less and less the greater the storm.
Right.
So in a
Correct.
100-year storm, there's not that much difference. But in the smaller storms,
Correct.
there's.
My area of questioning tonight is going to center on, is this project making the situation better, the same, or worse?
So if we're
That
talking.
was my question.
Sure. If we're talking, comparing existing to proposed now, I had thought we were talking about the existing only, the 2 different outlets at the existing. But if we're talking existing versus proposed, that would be, and combined, what goes to that wetland area would be analysis point 1. So in the 2-year storm event, we're drastically reducing the peak flow from
What's drastic?
8.7 down to 0.95. So almost 9 to point.
Almost 9 times.
You know, it's
Okay.
almost correct. And that's treated water quality too, where existing only half the site has some stormwater quality measures. 10-year goes from over 19 to under 9, so that's 50% reduction in peak flow. The 25-year is over 27 to about 16, so
Okay.
Again, drastic. It's the 100-year where they start converging, where it's, but it's still in the 75% range of 41 existing down to 32. So significant reductions in peak flow, and the coming slides will also see the significant improvements to stormwater quality as well.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question related to Dave's? I've been waiting all week to ask you this. Could you explain, I'm a little bit confused, the retention basins, I think, are designed for a 100-year storm, but the collection pipes for a 25-year storm? Is that, I mean, that's what I've read from the drawing. So these calcs, relative to Dave's question, I think on a 25-year storm, everything's going through the piping system and into the basins. And in a 100-year storm, the whole place just floods like the rest of the town. Is that kind of the right layman's interpretation?
The sizing of the piping is typically for a 25-year storm event. That's not necessarily to say that larger storm events, the water is just flowing all over the place. You have greater surcharge that's pushing the flow through those pipes, and also the topography of the site with the stormwater basin being on the downhill side of the site. That flooding will make its way towards that, primarily towards that basin as well.
Right. But the question is, so your chart here, the calculations show the discharge from the 36-inch pipe in different storm events.
Correct.
And there's a number here for the 100-year storm for the 36-inch pipe. But today's question, how much water is coming off the site? In a 100-year storm, it's going to flood the whole system, and not all the runoff is going to be coming out the 36-inch pipe.
There's potential for flow to not all. There's potential for not all the flow to get into that basin in that storm event.
So the answer to your question, Dave, might be it depends on whether you're talking the 100-year storm, which is less unusual than it used to be, but pretty unusual, versus 2-year or 25-year.
You guys can worry about that.
I don't know if we're smart enough to worry about that, to figure it out.
Now, those are also, I do want to note, this is the common practice for sizing of these features, because those are hypothetical storm events. They have a distribution curve associated with the various storm events, and the up to the 100-year storm is what we use for sizing stormwater management basins, but piping is often sized for the smaller year storm events. Often a 100-year storm, or a storm event that occurs that's a 100-year storm event, it's never going to exactly follow that curve that these design standards are based off of. But we size the basins based off of a certain curve, and we size the piping based off of a year storm event and common practice.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for answering that.
Hi, Ben Maslink with the Davis Companies. I do want to add one point that came up on our last meeting, just in terms of thinking about how much of the water is being treated. The initial precipitation would be going through the system and being treated. Once it is overflowed, you're looking at runoff that is a lot cleaner than the initial runoff that goes through the system. So
Yeah, well, that's fair, and I think we all understand it, a 100-year flood, the whole town floods.
Yeah.
Basically.
Get the arc out.
Right?
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Jumping back.
Yeah, let's, thanks for a little interaction. Let's try to get back on your presentation for you. Appreciate the interaction.
Not a problem. All right, just quickly on this slide, just for reference, the bioretention basin in the back of the site, the elevation of the ground in that basin is 106.5, which is compared to the 102 of the existing basin, so we're up about 4.5 feet. Plus, it's as a lined bottom, so we're not infiltrating in that basin. That is just filtering through the 2 feet of filter media for water quality purposes. So we have more elevation separation from groundwater, but that really doesn't even apply to that basin because of the liner. The other basins around the other we now have 3 below ground infiltration systems around the site. The bottom elevations of those are up even higher at 108, so a foot and a half higher than the elevation of bioretention, and 6+ feet higher than the existing stormwater management basin. We do acknowledge that additional test pits, now that we have a revised stormwater management system, that we are comfortable with how it works. We do need to go out and do that confirmatory test pit to confirm groundwater, to confirm infiltration tests. We acknowledge that, but we needed to know where to do those tests, to do them in the right locations where the design works for those systems. This sheet here is rather busy, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it shows. I'm going to break it down a little bit in the coming slides to help understand how the site drains, but it does as collectively show the amount of stormwater management features that we have around the site. So on the western side of the building, we have shrunk that infiltration system, and we have shifted it farther north and a bit tighter to the building to provide greater separation from. You can see the shaded area down the bottom left of the property. That's that well protection area. So we've shifted that farther away, and now that infiltration system only receives flow from the roof. From half of the roof, the western half of the building. So that's generally looked at as a clean runoff. It's not on pavement that requires treatment prior to infiltration. So we've now piped the paved surfaces from that side of the building to the front of the building on the south side to a new infiltration system there. So now we have a significant amount of infiltration, and it's farther away from the wellhead protection area. And we still have an eastern infiltration basin and a rain garden that the eastern infiltration basin takes the eastern half of the building roof as well as paved areas on the eastern side of the site, and the rain garden collects some of the driveway in the front of the site. So in total, there's 3 below-ground infiltration systems, 1 rain garden. The light blue in the back of the site is the bioretention system that does not infiltrate because it has a liner. As the rain garden in the front does infiltrate, there's no liner there. And separate in yellow is the compensatory flood storage, which is different than the existing conditions where that's a combined usage with the existing stormwater management. So we've separated those as is best practice. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green stars around the site. Those are the water quality units for treating stormwater runoff before they enter the infiltration systems in the bioretention system in the rear. So those are the various stormwater management features throughout the site, and then going to jump to how the system flows and what the treatment train looks like.
Can I ask Kevin a question?
Which one's pretty first?
This is just an overall that shows the different colors for the different water quality areas of how this is treated throughout the site. So we're not depending on the whole site being treated at one central location. They have various treatment locations throughout the site. And I'm going to go through those one by one in the following slides. So the following slides are going to be a breakdown of one particular area at a time. So it's easier to follow along how the site is, stormwater is managed throughout the site. So this first slide here, so for those following along, we're on the 5th page here, that has just a purplish color on the coloring on the south side of the building, and it says treatment train 1 at the bottom of the page. Give you all a second to catch up. So if you're on the sheet that right in the bottom center says treatment train 1,
One more.
right sheet should be the 5th page in the set. So here's one of several treatment trains throughout the site. So the area that's colored in purple on this sheet is a driveway, a portion of the driveway that drains to the rain garden in the front of the site. So how this functions is there are a couple catch basins in the driveway, deep sump catch basins that connect to a hydrodynamic separator to get the required pre-treatment for TSS before an infiltration system. So that area is then piped through the hydrodynamic separator into the rain garden. Now that rain garden has zero outflow in it in a 2-year storm event. So it well exceeds a water quality volume is sized for a 1-year storm event. Oh, sorry, a 1-inch storm event. A 2-year storm event is over 3 inches of rainfall. So in a 2-year, which is over 3 inches of rainfall, there's no flow leaving that design. So there's no flow leaving the outlet of that system. It all is retained and infiltrates.
How long should the water stand in the, will there be standing water in the rain garden, or will it be absorbed?
So these will infiltrate into the ground. We have sized the depths so that they infiltrate pretty quickly. The depths we've kept to a minimum. This location, I believe, actually in this location, the water quality volume is only a few inches, and as of now, we're based on the preliminary soil information, we're using 2.4 inches per hour of infiltration. So if you only have a few inches of water and water quality, it's gone within a couple hours. Bless you. In the larger storm events that do have outflow out of the outlet structure of that basin, that outflow then goes into the infiltration system number 3, which is directly north of it. So there's additional treatment in that location. When that receives enough flow that it overtops, it then is piped to the bioretention area in the back of the site. It will pass through another water quality structure before it enters that system. When that basin it fills up enough that the water level gets to the outlet structure on that, then it will discharge off-site to the through the 36-inch pipe, the existing 36-inch pipe. But the smaller storms, you're not getting any flow off-site. 2 years and below, you're not getting any flow off-site for what drains to that rain garden. And then we'll go through these different water quality areas similarly. So the next sheet is what we're calling treatment train 2A here. This is the western half of the building, which discharges to that now reduced infiltration system on the west side. So that similarly is sized such that it infiltrates all of the volume from a 2-year storm event, which is again greater than the water quality volume.
Is that the roof? Is that the roof?
For half of the building roof, correct.
Roof only.
That infiltration system receives no flow from catch basins at the surface, only roof flow. In the larger storm events where water discharges out of that infiltration system, it is similarly piped through a water quality structure into the bioretention area, and then cumulatively when that water elevation is high enough, it will then discharge off-site.
So why is a water quality structure needed if it's only roof runoff?
So that's really secondary. We'll get to that one. So that water quality structure will receive direct flow from the loading dock area in the back. So that water quality structure treats the flow that it receives directly. It won't be double treating because it'll essentially be clean water from the roof because the 1-inch storm event will be retained in that upstream system while the water's treated from the loading dock area in this in that water quality system. And then in the larger storm events, then later that additional flow will start to flow to that water quality structure as well. So that one is not, the intent of that water quality structure is not to treat the roof runoff, but it functions that way as well. On the right, mirrored on the right side, similarly, the right half of the building discharges to the infiltration system number 3, and what drains from the roof goes directly to the infiltration system 3. You'll see in coming slides there, this infiltration system does also get paved areas as well. But that comes in at a different location through a water quality structure. But the combination of all the areas that drain to infiltration system number 3, you'll see the theme here, no flow leaves that structure in a 2-year storm event. So again, that's all retained and infiltrates through that system. So here's water quality area number 2. So this is what we've taken from the western portion of the site. Sorry, the numbering on the bottom is treatment train number 3A for this area here. So this is as the large green area that is western portion of the site plus the southern, much of the southern portion of the site, as well as a decent amount of off-site drainage from Clark Street, at Clark Ave, I believe it is, which drains onto the site. That is all captured with on-site stormwater catch basins and piping. That's directed to this, first to the infiltration system number 2. But prior to that, it does go through a water quality structure. Just like all the others, that size that no flow leaves that structure in a 2-year storm event. Everything is retained and infiltrates in that structure. There's a small area, we call it the water quality area number 6, that's in between, on the next sheet, apologize, in between the southern infiltration system and infiltration system 3 on the eastern side. That portion goes through a different water quality structure and into infiltration system number 3. And I'm just going to jump to the next sheet, treatment train C. That's the mostly the eastern side of the site and a bit of the southern side of the site. So these are numbered treatment train. The last 3 were 3A, 3B, and 3C because they all essentially follow the same path. They they all end up going through infiltration system number 3 and discharging down to the bioretention area. But all of those collective watersheds, even collectively, there's still no discharge out of this infiltration system 3 in a 2-year storm event. So all that area ends up getting retained and infiltrated between the infiltration system on the south side, on the east side, and the rain garden. That all gets held there. And then only in the larger storm events does it start spilling downstream and getting into the bioretention area. Then lastly, to the 2 areas in the back of the site, the loading dock areas. The last 2 sheets are treatment train 4A, and we'll get to 4B. These are collected, run through a hydrodynamic separator for water quality, and then filtered through the soil in the bioretention area. And that has the liner, so it needs an under drain to be able to allow that to drain through the filter media and then drain off-site. That under drain is connected to the 36-inch pipe, which will discharge off-site. So in that one, there is discharge. That we can't infiltrate, so there will be discharge off-site. But in that case here, when you total up the 2, this water quality area 05 that's colored in yellow on this sheet, and then the next sheet is more area on the loading dock and portion of the driveway towards the back right of the building. That totaled up, you only have a little under 1 CFS discharging from that bioretention area in a 2-year storm event. And out of that, it's 0.9 CFS. Out of that 0.9 CFS, 0.35 gets filtered through the filter media and discharges through the under drainage. The other 0.6, the water level builds up enough and discharges out through the outlet control structure and through the 36-inch pipe. So that's a 2-year storm event. The water quality volume is all retained below the spillway, and that water quality volume all gets filtered through that soil media to be treated for water quality before discharging off-site. And again, since everything upstream of that loading dock area is all held back in the various other systems, you're not also getting flow from the rest of the site compounding in that basin until you get to the larger storm events above a 2-year. So it truly is treating just the loading dock area for water quality in the water quality storm event. It's not working as double duty trying to additionally treat water quality of the other areas that went through the other infiltration systems and rain garden. So that's there's a lot going on there. Hopefully, I was able to explain it in a way that could be followed along. But I think of one more slide that I wanted to discuss, and then we'd open it up to questions on stormwater. This was just a slide of the soils map, just to address a comment about why we used soil group A in all of our calculations. We feel that it's an appropriate and a conservative approach to do that. So if you look at this plan here, all the, I'm going to call it purple. I know my coloring's not the greatest, but I think it's purplish color surrounding the site. That sorry, if you can't tell, the existing site is in the middle of the screen here, where it's a grayish color, has numbers 653 and 602. Those are soil groups that do not have a defined hydrologic soil group, and our drainage calculations are based off of hydrologic soil groups.
Is that where the existing buildings are in those two locations?
Yeah, mostly impervious, correct.
And those are mostly impervious, exactly. So the hydrologic soil group doesn't really it makes no difference when you have impervious cover. The curve number is 98 for all of them.
Can you suggest why those soils might be different than the A soils?
So our approach was the site is surrounded almost completely, not entirely, but there's a little portion on the north for the wetland area and the highway ramp that are not defined as A, but the rest of it is defined as A. So it's reasonable to assume that if that area was defined, it would be A. So that was one reason why we went with A. Another reason is when it's all impervious, it doesn't matter what soil group you're using, because that soil group only matters for pervious features. And then lastly, it's actually the most conservative approach to use hydrologic soil group A when you have a condition where you're increasing imperviousness, because A means, and if you have a pervious feature, A means you have less runoff, more is getting into the ground. If you go B, C, and D, you're generating more runoff. So if we use B, C, and D, our existing conditions would have more runoff. So our target, we could allow more runoff in our proposed design. So using A actually is a conservative approach that makes us size our stormwater features towards a site that existing infiltrates more.
Can I assume that 602 and 653 might have fill that covers A?
It may, if it's underneath, for the purposes of stormwater modeling, if it's underneath pavement, it doesn't make a difference for stormwater modeling.
I understand.
So,
But it makes a difference for infiltration.
Correct, and that's what the testing, confirmatory testing will require. Additionally, we have done test pits and borings that have shown a good amount of sandy soil within the developed portion too. So we do feel comfortable that the A is the appropriate soil group to use at this point. And we believe it's the conservative approach. Using A doesn't mean we apply a certain infiltration rate. The infiltration rate is going to be based on the field testing, not the hydrologic soil group.
Good, well, thanks for the presentation and taking us through.
I actually understood what you said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. You paced it nice, at a nice pace, so. Let's see if we got some questions here. I'm sure we do. Starting to stand to the table again, John?
When do you plan on soil testing?
I'll handle that one. So we did just get the Coughlin environmental peer reviewer on board. I think the contract is signed yet. If not, it will be shortly. They're going to observe our test pits while we do it. So we're hoping in the next month or so we'll be out there when we get somebody mobilized.
So I haven't received any money yet.
Yeah, so we need to coordinate that and get the contract signed. We did call the excavator today to confirm availability though, so it is in the works.
I take it when you do that, the public will not be allowed, or will they be?
It's excavation on private property, so I think for safety issues, we won't have the public out there.
You're saying no?
I would defer to Davis.
I'm anticipating that some public may want to attend, so I just...
For what purpose?
Just to observe what you're doing.
They don't have the knowledge to diagnose.
We don't know that.
We can evaluate that.
Oh, no,
I think
you should anticipate that someone from the public may ask, and you should have an appropriate, polite response, that's all.
we'll figure that out. I think for safety reasons, we wouldn't have to, be able to have people near the site for all the insurance and stuff that goes along with that.
Well, depends on how close.
Depends on how close, yeah.
John?
Yeah, so you've done some testing over there?
Correct.
Right, okay, because I saw where you've dug and stuff.
Yep, 2 test pits,
So
a
these
bunch of
A's and the
borings as
B's
well.
and the D's are pretty,
We think they're pretty accurate. In fact,
Okay.
depth of groundwater was anywhere between 9 and 13 feet. The observed groundwater, so it's pretty low.
Yeah.
The reasons why we moved the infiltration systems back upgrade into the property is because we noticed seasonal high groundwater was, in that 5 foot below grade range. A little too high for us to be able to size the detention systems where we wanted them originally, closer to the wetlands. So we moved everything back up, and that's the kind of information we need to gather when we do the test pits to verify.
and one other thing is snow storage. Even though we're not having a lot of snow, we are gonna get snow eventually.
Correct.
On one of these plans, I'd like to see where you're gonna put it.
Sure.
And
Is it on the
that's-
revised set?
It's on. It
It was
is
on one of the
revised.
other ones, but there was driveways there, now there's a single driveway and
Keep
everything.
asking the question, John.
They've been, the revised drawing set has revised storm, snow storage areas.
Okay. All right.
And I haven't found it yet either, John.
Well, I,
We'll keep looking, John. We'll keep looking. Any more, John?
nope, I'm good for now.
Peter?
Yeah, I'll try to make this simple. Good presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Trying to figure out which of my questions were already answered. Let me just dive in, and I'll let my fellow commissioners stop me if I'm going too long. When I read through your 2.7 submittal, it had a statement that confused me, and I want to just be sure I understand. The statement was, all stormwater from impervious areas ultimately discharged to the wetlands. But that's not really true. That's only if it's greater than a 2-year storm.
Correct.
Well, in other words, I think you answered the question, but basically the plan is a bunch of infiltration basins which do have an overflow
Yes.
to the biofilter.
If it is to overflow during any given event, yes, it will end up in the wetlands.
Right,
is what I
and,
should say.
right, and the calculations, if we dove through all the calculations you guys did in the peer review, would show that that overflow, you're guessing, I know it depends on the infiltration rate you actually due measure. But you're guessing that right now, that overflow is roughly greater than a 2-year storm. Is that correct?
Yeah,
For
what's-
the
what's the
infiltration
section
basins?
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, roughly speaking.
Yes, yeah, I'll skip the first question about the statement. I don't recall exactly
Yeah, forget
what
that
that phrase
doesn't
was, but in the updated design, there is, in less than in a 2-year and less storm, there is discharge off-site, but it's minor, and it's only from the area behind the building, the loading dock area that drains to the bioretention system, because that system can't infiltrate. So it filters through the filter media and discharges out to the underdrain. So it's a much reduced peak, and it's
Right, but the drawings all show a discharge, a pipe, from the infiltration basins
yes.
to the biofilter, the big biofilter. So my question is, I want to be sure I understand, when do you anticipate those infiltration structures overflowing to the biofilter?
Correct. So that is
that a 2-year?
It is between a 2 and a 10-year storm event. In a 10-year storm event, there is some flow leaving all of those systems.
Okay, will I find that in all the data that you guys have presented? In the must be in the calculations somewhere.
Correct. So
All right.
there's a section on the proposed stormwater calculations, and it has in a number
Right.
in table form and also graph form, which the graphs
Okay.
will show you what the discharge is from those systems in the various storm events.
And if I could just add, Peter, it has been requested a number of times for the written narrative description of the treatment train.
That was added to the recent stormwater report. It was. So I could show you exactly where that is in 1 minute. To answer the first question on drawing, this is C502 are the 2 locations for potential snow storage. One along the front of the building, between the main drive and the Riverneck Road, and towards the east of that main drive. So those are shown on C502. And I could pull open the stormwater management report as well and point you to the section where that treatment train was discussed. And it's discussed similar to today's presentation.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just say, I'll go ahead and review it and let you know.
yeah, I don't think we need to take time now, but I appreciate you doing that.
Section 3.5, it's the standard for water quality, has a narrative on the different water quality areas, and then the pre-treatment and treatment, the number of treatment trains.
We purposely beefed that section up because of your comments from before.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm interested in the, I'm calling it the biofilter. Is that the right word?
For the detention basin at the bottom?
Yeah, and where will I find design specs for that? You know, the type of planting and, well, for that matter, I'm interested in things like operation and maintenance procedures.
So we do have details on the drawings that show, the cross-section
That
of
would be in the
how that's
drawings?
installed, and the
Okay.
materials are called out there. And then there is an O&M, plan that probably covers
Yeah, I read through
potential
that.
facility as well.
Correct.
Yeah,
So,
and then, that's sort of related to my next question, and pardon my lack of knowledge of these things. How long does it take the biomass to become fully functional? In other words, you've got a 2-foot layer in that bioretention basin of vegetation and soil. So, I mean, that in itself is a filter. But also the vegetation itself provides filtering between the roots and the vegetation. And I'm curious how long it takes for that biomass to become functional. I mean, you build the thing and you plant it, but how long before it gets put into operation? And is there a year or two where it takes the stuff to get established, where it's acting more like just a plain filter without the biomass? And then the related question is, how much filtering does the biomass really provide versus 2 feet of soil, which, and you don't have to answer those this minute. I'm just throwing that question out to the commission to think about. Is it going to take a year or two before the thing's operating? And do we need to consider that, or is it?
So the one way I can't answer that is Mass DEP has their stormwater management handbook.
Yeah, I've been through it.
We've followed the guidelines that are in that handbook specific to, there's a section specific to rain gardens and bioretention.
Yeah.
And that's what we are following.
All right.
And just part of one of your questions was where you can find some information. So drawing C302 is the landscape plan, which has the added landscaping in the rain garden as well as the bioretention in the rear of the site. So there's specific plantings as well as the biofiltration seed mix.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I need to look at those bigger. Yeah, I need to look at the bigger drawings.
Sure. And then there's similarly a detail in the back that's a section of that on C606.
So do you guys have some examples of other projects where you've designed this kind of biofilter with an underdrain and the direct discharge from the underdrain to the wetlands?
It's probably very similar to that detail, honestly. I think that detail's a pretty standard detail for these types of systems.
Yeah, I mean, is this something you guys have built hundreds of and I just don't know about it?
Yeah.
These are common stormwater management features. They're modeled right out of the Mass DEP stormwater guidelines.
I mean, really, when the system's installed right away, you get that filtering ability almost immediately. You know, your media's in there, the water travels down through it, it removes those solids. As plants grow and you said the biomass grows and becomes more established, that's when you get more of the nutrient removal and phosphorus removal, that kind of stuff.
All right, well, let me jump through all these questions because you guys did answer quite a few that I put together. I'm curious about the oil and grease removal of the system. So let's say you have a tenant with a lot of leaky trucks, such that oil and grease is a bit of a concern for the wetlands. Is there data floating around on the oil and grease removal? Well, let me start at the beginning. Are these deep sumps and the centrifugal separators? I mean, I know they remove oil and grease because they're removing the particles and the oil and grease is on the particles. But my question really is, in terms of floating oil product, if you have a lot of leaky trucks, can you tell us what the removal efficiency or effectiveness is of, well, the three parts of the treatment system, right? You've got the deep sumps. Are those really an oil-water separator, and is there a cleaning process? And then you've got the hydrodynamic separators. Do they end up with floating oil product in a worst-case scenario? And how is that managed so it doesn't then go through into the infiltration basin or the biofilter? And I don't know if you guys addressed that and I missed it, or if it's something we can talk about down the road.
Yeah, the intent is for that to not get into the infiltration system. The pre-treatment is where you're going to want to capture those oils and greases before they get to the bioretention system. So
but are they considered oil-water separators, or is it an oil-water separator a totally separate piece of equipment?
So you'll get some with the catch basin with the hooded trap. So you'll have your water elevation in the basin is set by the invert of the pipe, and then you have a hooded cover over that so that the top layer, which is where the oils will float to, are held in the basin and water gets pushed up into the pipe with that configuration. And then, correct, the hydrodynamic separators also have they separate where they have a pit at the bottom where the solids sink to, and then they similarly, like the hooded trap, have a section where the floatables, the oils or plastic bottles or whatever will float to the surface, and it's the middle area of the water in that structure that gets discharged down site.
Right. So when you get more than a 2-year storm, then all that oil flushes through the system? How does that work?
They have baffles for the higher flow storm events will internally bypass the system.
Did you submit
after the first flush?
these must be commercially available units that you could, maybe you already told us, and forgive me if you did, but we could take a closer look at.
Right, these
Vendor
are,
information, we can provide the vendor information for the particular units.
Yeah, was that submitted and I just missed it?
Do we call out the specific
we
one?
do call out
Yes.
the specific model on the drawings. It's a Context CDS unit, and they're sized based on the amount of flow that goes to those units, so they have various sizes depending on how much flow it's treating. These systems are designed and tested. New Jersey has a thorough testing agency, that might not be the appropriate word for it, but these go through a testing and get certified that they.
Yeah. The reason I ask is you guys are well aware, the Stormwater Handbook talks a lot about suspended solids and not that much about oil and grease.
Peter, would you like the actual manufacturer specs?
Yeah, I think
And that, we'll send you a link to, just for a visual, a graphic. They have a good short video clip that shows how these systems work and give you an understanding of that.
We'll get you the information, but a quick Google of that model number, a YouTube video will pop up, you can see exactly how it works.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to point that out.
Let's
And I think,
stop your
let me
questioning
stop,
now,
because,
right?
And there is,
Let me stop.
part of your questions in there were, in our stormwater management report, we have operation and maintenance procedures, which
Yeah, I
have
read them.
frequency of inspecting these systems. So obviously, if you never check them, they're gonna fill up, and that's gonna go downstream. But part of the stormwater management is the operation and maintenance.
Yeah, I read through them pretty carefully. So I'll withhold the rest of my
Yeah,
comments.
just.
It's getting late. Thank you.
I know, and we'll
Thank
circle
you,
back.
Chris.
We're gonna give the rest of the team a
Yep.
chance, and we've got the public out there as well, too.
Thank you.
But all good questions, Dave, moving along?
We want to limit our questions to his presentation.
Yeah, we want to try to limit it. if we
There are
can.
some points raised in our minutes of the ones that Vivian just sent around. I want to make sure you guys are addressing them, that's all. I think the first one you are. Let me just read them off. Final testing, soil testing is still to be done, and I think you said that's the case.
Correct.
The other one was the town engineer needs to witness the test pits and the testing. Is that, and so that'll have,
And
you'll
the
have to
peer
invite
reviewer.
them on.
It'll be the peer reviewer.
And the peer reviewer.
Okay.
Doubling down there.
And then from that, calculations will be done. I'm just referencing things that are mentioned in our minutes, just
Correct.
so
We
don't
anticipate
overlook.
that the test fits will
Yeah.
verify the assumptions we made for the calculations. If they don't, we'll have to update some stuff.
Mr. Coons had asked some research be done on an emergency spillway. Is that in process, or is that going to be done? And I'm not sure what the definition of an emergency spillway is, but, no, don't, I'm just saying, these are in the minutes, so somehow you ought to try to address them, right?
But I think that gets back to Peter's question earlier about what happens, where the pipes can't accommodate all of the flow with the 100-year storm.
There was some discussion in a prior meeting with the water department in their Zone 1, and the response was the applicant is removing some of the pavement to be further away from Zone 1. Did we see that in your presentation today? Or is that being addressed some other way?
No, I believe we addressed that, and I would hope that was addressed to the satisfaction of
Okay, so
of the water company.
I'm sure we'll get a report from the water department at some time in the future, okay. Soil testing in Zone 1 is still pending, according to our minutes.
We're going to test all the detention, all the
And some of them
infiltration
would
and
be
the
in
main
Zone 1, probably?
No proposed work is within Zone 1.
Okay, well, our minutes say soil testing in Zone 1 is still pending. Is that correct or not correct? We got to correct our minutes if it's not
This
correct.
could be right, because I have no idea what half this stuff is.
It would be near Zone 1, not in Zone 1.
You want to make a note of that, to change it, soil testing near Zone 1? That's really scientific.
We're going to be putting monitoring wells in.
I just want to change the
over
minutes
there,
then.
But yeah,
Okay, let's get
there's
the
no
right.
soil testing in Zone
Okay.
1 that's needed.
There's a comment, the proposed stormwater design, that's a general term, will improve conditions over what is happening now. what I heard from your presentation is that's the case, correct?
I would agree with that.
And we are having a third-party peer review of the soil testing, okay. All right, those are the questions that, let me just see if I had anything else on his presentation, and then, guys, I will shut up. A great sigh of relief. In what you showed us tonight, are any of the driveways or any part of the building closer to the wetlands than what we have seen in the past?
No.
Okay. All right, I'll wait, because we're going to probably continue this, is that right?
Oh, absolutely.
DEP hasn't seen anything, right?
Oh, no, they've been sent the filing.
I'm sorry?
They have been sent the
So
filing.
every change that we get, DEP gets?
Well, that I don't know.
Can we assume
Have the
can we
revised
assume
plan.
DEP's reviewing it while we are?
Well, I don't know if I make that assumption.
Okay. That's all I.
Thanks, Dave. All right, Bill.
Yeah.
That was a great presentation. It was easy to understand, so I appreciate that. I only had a couple questions. Is there on that bioretention area, is there a useful life on that where you have to redo the system? Because, especially with the trucks and the possibility of oil on a bigger storm, or just oil and contaminating that soils, is there a lifespan for that, where as part of the O&M, that would have to be redone? Because that's integral part of this whole system.
Correct. So it's part of the O&M. It's not, replace it after 25 years or whatever year. There is no set year, because it all varies depending on the health of the basin and the plants in it, and what actually that receives, what type of storm events there are, and if there was a spill that got through the other protection measures and got to it. So it's just part of the continued operation and maintenance, and as part of those inspections, if it's determined that it's not
So
functioning.
they would look at the soils themselves to see if it's contaminated in some way with oily, it's not going to drain the way it's supposed to, or?
Yeah, if part of the inspection is seeing if it's not draining in the proper, timeframes, going out after storm events to make sure it drains.
Because the structures, you can clean them out and do what you need to do for that, but this is something that's, basically a pond where you've got soils and plants in that, and if especially on a site where you're gonna have a lot of trucks, and it's gonna, that's my main concern, is where the trucks are, any contamination that it's gonna end up in the wetlands and affect the water or anything like that. So, yeah, I would like to make sure that it's very specific how that's looked at, because if somebody's gonna go out there and look and say, oh, yeah, the plants are growing, but nobody looks at the soils, and it just gets, over time, because we've had some big storms and it runs in there, and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So, and the other question I had was, can you explain, you've got a shut-off, if there is a spill, how that all works?
Sure, yeah, I didn't
And where it is
get into that
exactly.
today, yes. There was a drawing, I think it's the third sheet in the set. Correct, this drawing here. So between the bioretention basin and the outfall,
Yep.
there is a gate valve for shut-off, so that if there were to be a leak that was significant enough, or a spill that was significant enough to get through the catch basins with the hoods and the hydrodynamic separator and start to enter that basin, one could walk out and shut off a valve to not allow any release of flow from that basin out to the wetlands.
It's good, so the valve's gonna be at where the green star is that?
No,
the
it's
structure?
it's about where my hand is here, where this arrow is pointing. It's between the bioretention area and the wetlands.
So it's after the bioretention, so that goes back to my other question about, at that point, you've contaminated that basin.
the soil
At
would
that
be
point,
contaminated.
somebody needs to come out, somebody would come out if there was a need to shut that valve off. That tells somebody that something happened there.
Correct.
If there was a
That's all part of the
catastrophic
O&M
event and
and-
some discharge happened, you'd have to go in there and remediate those soils and get rid of it.
Right.
And that would be confined to the soils, or the filter media soils within the basin, because it's a liner, so it wouldn't escape from the basin. And it will take some time for that leak to get to where that valve is too, because it has to go through the catch basins, hydrodynamic separator, has to enter the basin, which has a pretty expansive bottom, and the volume would have to be drastic to get high enough to then go out the spillway. So it would have to filter through that filter media, which additionally takes time. So there's reaction time built in for one to go and shut off that valve.
So how do these places work? If somebody, there's a company goes in the building, is there a person that's trained to use these, to shut that off if something happens? How does that follow the, I mean, it's easy to do it. It's easy to have the valve there, but if nobody's at the place that knows what it's for, how is that?
Sites of this nature require, I believe this would require stormwater pollution control plan and all the elements that are involved with that.
Is there somebody on the facility that's required,
that's in charge of being aware of everything, that all the materials that are stored and how they're supposed to be stored, and ensure that they're stored properly, that you have your appropriate.
Is there reporting on that also?
I don't off the top of my head know all the details of that.
Reporting on it, but there's, in the storm, actually, there is reporting on that as part of the stormwater pollution prevention plan that will be issued during construction specifically, right? So when we're disturbing soils and we have all the erosion controls set up, there's somebody that is a dedicated monitor for that, and I think monthly they have to report to DEP on that. Afterward, I think in the O&M manual, if it's not in there, we should have it in there. It should be in there, the inspection period, looking at all the different various water quality treatment units, the detention pond, the rain garden, and looking for performance and contamination characteristics. And I'll say, for a site like this, the valve system there is super atypical. It was only added on this site as a result of, the water department's comment, based on their concerns about being close to the Zone 1. So that's the reason why we have that in there. It's belt and suspenders approach for a site like this, in our opinion.
Would you have it on the site if it wasn't a loading docks and trucks? Would it?
For a site like this, we typically wouldn't have it. If it was a site that we knew had, like an ExxonMobil site or something like that, we would be looking at stuff like that, for sure.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Bill, you good? All right, Mark?
Most of the questions have already asked, especially Peter went in some detail on that, and Billy I don't see the Zone 1 on the map here showing where that is located on there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
The
Okay.
hatching, I think.
I don't have anything more right now.
All right, Carl. We'll move on to Carl then.
How many soil test holes are you planning to do? How many holes?
The DEP requires a number per square foot of each system. I don't have off the top of my head remember how many that is, although I think we may have had it on the plan.
We're going to follow that regulation, whatever it is, but I believe it's 2 per infiltration system. It might be 1 in the stormwater rain garden.
Yeah, there's a minimum number for each system, and then if it's greater than so many square feet, it's an additional test pit per, I think it's 500 square feet, additional, or 5,000 square feet. Off the top of my head, I don't have that, but we're going to follow the DEP standard for number of tests.
All right, thanks, Carl. All right, David, anything you want to say right now before we go to the public?
No, I don't really have anything else to add, except, and this is for future thought, and it probably wouldn't hurt to start looking into it. We do need to verify that there is the legal right to drain the discharge off-site onto the town, actually the Conservation Commission's property. So that will need to be verified.
different from that it does already?
Well, maybe there already is the legal right. You know, maybe, I mean, there's nothing shown, there's no easement shown on the plans, but, you know, that does need to be verified that the legal right does exist. And if it doesn't, you know, that'll have to be addressed. So just throwing that out there, no, wouldn't hurt to start thinking about it.
All right, thanks, David. All right, this is a public hearing, and I appreciate the patience of all of those in the audience. So if we could just have you come up, give us your name and address, ask a question, make a comment, and we can have the applicant's engineering staff reply as needed to those questions.
Good evening again. Chris LaValle, 10 Edgewood Street, Precinct 10, Town Meeting Rep. Given the discussion related to 270 Billerica, I would just make a request for this project that any draft conditions be created before the public hearing is closed, so we have a chance to respond to them and provide input and feedback because of the magnitude of this project. Okay, so this project is categorized as a land use with higher potential pollutant load, and the areas contributing to that are directly abutting the wetlands. So you got the trailer parking, the loading docks, the truck route through the parking area. One of the questions I have is, for most trailer parking, especially that I see at UPS, the trailers actually hang over the impervious surface onto whatever landscaping is there. I'm curious to see if there's going to be any barrier to prevent that on this, because if there is anything in the tractor trailers that are parked there, they could spill out into the land right abutting the wetlands and drain right into the wetlands as opposed to being caught by their stormwater. So that's one question I would have for that. Also, according to their stormwater plan, the spill containment for any spills in the loading dock is at the end of the flow with a single manual shutoff. So if there is a spill during a heavy rain, and a 2-year storm event is not that infrequent, I mean, it's only a couple of years. If there is a spill and it goes into that retention basin, anything over a 2-year storm would start overflowing into the retention basin. And it seems like it would be an odd thing to have more water being added to a spill that's trying to be contained. So one question I would have is, why is that spill containment not separated from the entire rest of the stormwater? It seems like you're adding to the problem by adding thousands of gallons of water to a potential spill. The snow storage area, I saw 2 in front. My question is, how realistic is it going to be for a plowing contractor to move all of that loading dock snow to the front of the building? And if it is in the front of the building, it seems like all of those potential spills and contaminants from the back are now going to be put near the rain garden. So I would have a concern about that. And then my last point is really a question that I keep seeing in my head. I keep hearing their stormwater plan is being compared to current conditions. It seems to me that that's comparing apples to oranges, because the stormwater standards now are very different than when those buildings were put there. And anything that is put there now is absolutely going to be better because it's up to better standards. What I would prefer to hear is that, is this stormwater management plan the best for this use of the property for this current time? Because if you upgrade to an office park again, you would still have to upgrade the stormwater, and it may still require the same standards as they're implementing now. But when you add all the tractor trailers and all the traffic, it seems to me that that would be the better standard. Because they could easily raise the buildings, tear up all the pavement, and not do any more stormwater improvements, and that would probably still be better than what's there now. So that's my only last comment. Thanks.
Could
Thank you, sir.
you submitted like 3 or 4 questions in that.
Mm-hmm.
Could you write them down and give them to us?
Absolutely. Yep, I'll submit them in writing to the board, to the commission after.
And Ty and Bond, I mean, if you guys would like to respond to those questions now, that would be helpful, I think, as much as you could.
I think we'll defer till we get the written comments so we can digest it a little bit.
Okay, all right, but I think those were good questions, and we'd like to get answers for those, so, good. All right.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Robert Delaney, 22 McFarland Road, Chelmsford. Obviously, I'm the retired superintendent of Chelmsford Water. So I know we had concerns here with the water in Zone 1. So I'm trying to cover the things under your wetlands protection at the moment. So again, the purpose is to protect the water supply, public water supply. I noticed that you have the building, you're at about 10 feet off the Zone 1. And I think if we go back to what happened earlier tonight with 270 Billerica Road, we're looking at a couple of permits that are needed there where you're going to be in limitations on construction and disturbance, because obviously you're not going to be able to do that work if you're only sitting 10 feet off with the paved parking area where the building goes around the driveway. The building itself, I believe, is 40 feet from the Zone 1. I'd like to see and I'll of course bring this with the Water District, but they did ask for the markings for the Zone 1. I would expect them to put out cement boundaries so that we know where Zone 1 is, because you people won't be there all the time, and whoever's doing the construction will be within Zone 1. All right, so I think that needs to be further marked out along with not just putting it on a map. The other thing that talking with the superintendent was there was alterations done here. The elevation grades, am I right at seeing 116? 116. So you're bringing in an awful lot of disturbance, aren't you? Bringing in a lot of fill? Tremendous amount of fill coming in. So I think that's another thing that needs to be agreed to and worked out with the Water District. And the reason I say that is because you were a direct abutter to the Zone 1 and to the Water District. And this happened back in 2007 when we had property being done on 243 River Neck Road. There were a lot of conditions done because of the fill that was going to be brought in, making sure the controls were in place for what the fill is. And the other thing that you have is you have 3 monitoring wells, but it's just saying you'll have 3 monitoring wells. It's not talking about doing any annual testing, doing any testing for you people ahead of time to understand what might be there already existing. So I think that needs to be addressed in a situation that you should be looking at an annual sample testing done on those, and maybe have a peer review and find out where these 3 wells should be set. I know you have it on the western side of the building, which is next to Zone 1, but I think we should be looking at that a little closer as well. I'm hoping I'm not going too far off with the conservation, what you're looking. I just think this is the right time to bring it up.
Water quality is very important, Bob.
Yep, so, anyway, those are the things I had at the moment. You covered a lot in your presentation. So again, impervious surface prohibited within the 30 feet of the west side. You're right in Zone 1. So, anyway, that's what I have for right now for comments.
Thank you very much.
I can do just a little quick response to those. So, we are working with the water department very closely on this. Regarding the fill, we do have, requirements for clean fill. It's got to be, tested and has to be clean bringing it in. Obviously, it is quite a bit of fill. As far as the monitoring wells go, I believe the condition's written so that the water department can come and test the water, as frequently as they need to monitor as well. So we did cross the T's and dot the I's with that one as well.
Thanks.
And one last to add to that is the distance from the Zone 1, the existing site, we essentially need to do work this close to well 1 to remove the existing pavement. We've removed the pavement significantly farther than the Zone 1, than the existing condition. The current site is built right up to that boundary. You really can't even tell that the curb line is in this location, because the curb line really sets the boundary of that Zone 1, whereas the proposed curb line is significantly pulled farther away. There is the closest point where it's on the order of 10 feet. The building corner itself is significantly more than 40 feet away. I could get a dimension on that if that matters, but I'd say we're well over 100 feet away.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Luna?
Hi, I'm Ruth Luna, 10 Carter Drive, and speaking for Joel and me. So I just wanted to add a few points from what was said already before I get into what I was going to say. I wanted to clarify that when they showed that initial slide of showing the area, the blue area that was getting treated and that larger area of orange not being treated, only that left portion is stormwater. That's where that 199 river neck is. The other portion is woods. And if you have not put any conveyance or anything altering it, it's not stormwater, it's just rainwater going in the ground. And so only the 199 part is the stormwater. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then also that, yes, they're correct when they say that assuming a soil A, that is the most conservative when you're talking in terms of peak rate. But it is the least conservative when you're talking about recharge, which is also important in an area where we're talking about supplying our drinking water. So I just wanted to add those clarifications. I'm very glad to hear that there is testing being set up and that the testing sounds like it'll be done before any decision is issued. The second page of that first letter we gave you, we did a figure to help explain why we've been trying to emphasize the importance of it. That we took data points as far as from the known wetland elevation. We took some of their test pits that are in line with that, and then across the street on the other side of the street, there's another wetland. So we took its elevation, because wetlands, you can tell from their boundary, 1 foot down, it would be seasonal high groundwater. So there are 4 known points. And then we took from that basically what the applicant is assuming for how they've designed their system is that they've assumed that after it rises coming from the wetland to those first test pits, they're assuming it then goes horizontally through the rest of the site, and then suddenly it goes up 7 feet on the other side of the street to meet up with the other wetland, which is not a realistic assumption. So since there's not been test pits done, what we did on that figure there is we just figured, okay, we'll just say that it's going to go linearly, just for lack of having data. So that orange line on there represents it has the 4 known points, and then we just made it that it would be linear between those. And then the gray line that's above it, that's 2 feet away. So that represents the bottom of an infiltration system has to fall above that gray line. And then we've positioned the 3 infiltration subsurface beds plus the rain garden, because they all infiltrate. We've shown where they are relative to the wetland edge, where they are elevation-wise. So the western bed, which is the one actually that isn't in line with the test pits, so it's the least reliable assumption, that one is just above that 2-foot line. The other ones, the rain garden is under the 2-foot line, and then the subsurface beds 2 and 3, so the southern and the eastern ones, are actually in the groundwater, if you assume that. So that's why it's so critical to have this testing done beforehand, because the assumptions they're making, there isn't a reason to assume that they're going to hold up. And if they don't, even the applicant last time acknowledged that they're going to have to redesigning things. And additionally, the soils do need to be checked for what type, because there was enough clay out there that it drastically, and we know there's been a large swamp out there, and so both of those are factors. So we're really glad to know that it's being peer-reviewed and being done. And if they don't have that separation, we can talk about how this improves it, but they're assuming that their assumptions are correct. But if they aren't, if you're not separated from groundwater, you haven't improved the water quality. You're putting untreated water or insufficiently treated water straight in the groundwater. So they can't say they've met the peak rate. They can't say they've met the recharge. They can't say they've met the water quality until the soil tests confirm their assumptions, or then cause them to redesign the project. So I just wanted to explain why we really appreciate that you are doing that. And in the letter, I included a suggestion of where we would recommend some of the test pits to be done. And I also have a question as far as, since the beds are so close, that DEP does say that if it's down gradient, that it can be within 10 feet of a building. If it's up gradient, it needs to be 100 feet away. And I don't quite know how those would be categorized. So if you, David, could have the peer review check that as well to see if they're far enough or not. And then, as with others, we have concerns about the snow storage being inadequate in terms of you've got over a 5-acre building, nearly 10 acres of pavement, and how it will fit in that one small area. And we're concerned, we would like signage and maybe even physical barriers to keep it from being plowed into the bioretention, into the compensatory area, into the wetlands, and into the Zone 1, to make sure that a plow driver isn't just going to do what's convenient. I'll skip some of the other things. Another concern we have is the proposed temporary sediment basins during the time of construction. They show 3 areas, but there's no clear narrative as to how this is going to be done. One of the areas that they show is actually going into what they are going to have as compensatory flood storage. And so how you shouldn't be putting your sediment. They're saying they aren't going to have it in a flood area, but yet they're saying they're having it in that area. So it's not clear when will it be compensatory flood storage, when will it be a sediment basin, because you can't be filling the detention area that they'll fill without having first created that offset of the flood storage. And in fact, the flood storage, I'll get into in a moment, that area, it would intercept groundwater to be putting sediment into there, so I don't see how that's a wise thing. The bioretention area is another area where they're proposing to put a sediment basin. And so there again, it's how do you make this work logistically in terms of when can you build your bioretention area versus having it being holding your sediment, because you shouldn't stop using a sediment basin until everything that's contributing to it drainage-wise has been addressed, but everything flows through the bioretention. And so that doesn't make sense to use that. And then I had questions as far as the one next to between the western bed and the Zone 1, as far as just how are they all going to be serviced? Where is the sediment going to be disposed? And just how are they going to protect the Zone 1 and the area, the infiltration area, from compaction? But then the other area is about the compensatory flood storage. So currently what exists, the detention basin there from the 201 River Neck intercepts groundwater. And so that regularly holds standing water. What they are proposing is a bottom elevation of 101. But they've done a test pit actually in that area and showing seasonal high groundwater is 105. So, or 104.10 inches. So that is going to be holding, just as the detention area has, it's going to be regularly holding water in it. And so the detention area, because it was part of a stormwater system, is not considered a regulatory wetland. This area now is not part of a stormwater system. It's being provided as compensatory area. So by the fact that it's likely going to always have water in it, or certainly it will always have it within a foot of the surface, I'm sure, enough during the growing season, does this make it become a wetland? And I don't know the answer to that, but that's something that you would need to consider and find out about. Are you in essence creating a wetland here? And is this an area where you want to be creating a wetland? When you think of it, that like how Chris pointed out, trucks parking there, and if they're extending back beyond it, it's not just going to be a wetland, but it's a wetland where the groundwater has broken through and is surface water. So anything that goes in there is getting zero treatment and it's right into our groundwater supply. So that is something that I think needs to be addressed as far as the proximity of that area to where you're having the parking, because it is going to be holding the water. And then additionally, the planting plan that they have proposed for that, if you look on the website for the company, it says that the seeds won't grow in an area that's inundated, so it's not going to work what they're proposing in that area, so that needs to be relooked at as well. And then the final question I had for now is on the eastern part of the site, the 191 lot that's still forested. When you look at their time of concentration flow, that you can see that the water all drains to a low point on that site. That the lowest contour is 107 with a spot grade in 106. The closest test pit to that area has a seasonal high groundwater of 106. A 106 seasonal high groundwater would correspond to a 107 wetland elevation. I think that that area that receives all that drainage should be checked to see, is that actually an isolated wetland? To confirm that you want to make sure that you're not missing an area. That area is going to then, they are proposing that that area will be covered by their roadway. So you want to know, is that actually a wetland area there? So I would ask that you have that checked and have, if it is, the boundaries determined, and then decide what you're going to do with that. And these questions and more are all spelled out in what I gave.
Thank you, Ruth,
Sure.
very much. All right, we had a lot of information presented to us today, so.
Just with regard to Ruth's last comment.
Hey, David?
So do you know what she's referring to? I could show you where it is on the plan. If you go to what's now 191.
What was that?
You go to 191, if you go to the lot that's now known as 191 River Neck.
Yep. Yeah, is that, this slope comes down, down
Yeah, it's a
this,
little hard
this
to see
area here?
there. I mean, it should probably take your wetland scientists, 15 minutes, if they could go out and take a quick look at that.
This location here.
Yeah. So that could be done very, very quickly. Verify that.
Yep.
one way or the other.
Good. Thanks, David. All right, well, we had a lot of information tonight. We appreciate the presentation, the
continue
input. Yeah, we're going to have to continue. What makes sense for us to continue at this point for a date? I mean, our next meeting's the 28th, but does it make sense to go out to the 28th, or do we, want to go out longer, I guess, is my question.
Let's go to the 28th.
What sort of is, do you have an anticipated time frame for the soil testing at this point, or is it still kind of up in the air?
Why don't we hold a spot for them? We can always not meet for them. Just in case, I want to keep this thing moving as expeditiously as we can. So let's put it to
Well,
the
Dave,
28th, and if
sounds
they
like
don't have
this-
any new information, then they can,
Sounds like Dave's making a motion that we continue to the 28th, so
yeah.
motion by Dave for the
No,
28th.
I just wanted, does anybody think it should be longer than that?
I mean, I think the most significant event is going to be the test pits. That's going to be very significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think that'll answer a lot of questions. I think there are a number of other questions unrelated to the test pits that if you let us just kind of go back and collect our notes, and if we can continue to the 28th, and if it seems like it's worth just, waiting until the test pits are done, we can let you know, David. But it would be helpful to, kind of continue to chip away at the open items if possible on the 28th.
All right, I move we continue the hearing for 191, 195, 199, and 201 River Neck Road until February 28th.
28th. All right, we second on that?
Second.
Bill on the second, motion by Dave. All those in favor? Aye, any opposed? Unanimous. All right, we'll see you all on the 28th. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, back on our agenda, we have an item here. This was the notice of intent continued from March 1st, 2022, Town of Chelmsford, 1-104 Turnpike Road. I believe that we were looking for a continuance on that, right?
That's right. So, didn't really give me a suggested date, but maybe a couple months.
Couple months? All right, so let's put it out a couple months.
So I guess that'd be maybe the March 28th.
March 28th. All right, do we have a motion then for March 28th to continue?
So moved.
Moved by Carl, seconded by Mark on the second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, so that's done. That should take us through our regulatory hearings for the evening. And then moving in, we've got land management update next up on our agenda.
So we continue to push ahead on the conservation restriction on the CR. We're not there yet. In fact, Dave and David, we need to connect on that again. I know that the Land Stewardship Conservation Trust is meeting tonight to talk about that, so we need to connect on that. Saturday, we are looking at doing a site walk at Wright Reservation at 9 o'clock. I saved you guys from the
Cold.
10 below zero walk.
I was there.
You were gonna go?
Yeah.
I was there.
Dave was there. Dave was there.
So I would like, if we could go to Wright and to meet in the parking lot and a little bit of stuff around there. And then secondly, to go around to the backside, which is, we could either walk or we can drive around. But the backside, which is DeWolf Drive, and there's an entrance in the back. And that's where our fairly significant opportunity to extend the raised walkway that we've talked about a number of times in our meetings in the past. But I think it's a good opportunity to get everybody there to look at that and get eyes on that. The other thing, it occurred to me earlier when we were talking about the center walk in the center, we could maybe stop there afterwards if that made sense. Since, Saturday morning, we're all there. Or whoever wants to, that may or may not make sense. But
And then go next door for lunch?
might have enough of you by then. So I think that's all I've got on land management. Do you have anything else, David?
No, we were, just to say, we were hoping to meet with Darlene tomorrow to talk a little bit about.
She never got back to me. Have you
See if.
heard anything? Yeah.
Talk about,
Yeah, trying to get clarity on the funding and the money stuff, so I'm trying to connect with Darlene. She had, I'm sure, a well-deserved vacation, and she just got back today, so hopefully we'll connect with her. We do have a CPC meeting tomorrow night, and in addition, the Wilson Lane recommendation will be voted on tomorrow night that we already voted on, so, okay, so.
Good. Thanks, Carl. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda is the agent's report. Anything on 203 Boston Road?
Just
Shore Drive?
quickly, the RDA is almost completed on that. Still been waiting, it's been waiting on the site manager to tell me what they did down there. Because that needs to be the work description in the.
This is the
RDA.
lumberyard?
What's that?
At the lumberyard?
Yes, but I guess he was down in New Orleans at a conference all last week.
He was where?
New Orleans at a conference all last week.
I could have gone and visited him.
I was assured that he would get in touch with me when he got back, which was yesterday. Haven't heard from him, so
Of course not.
I guess I'll have to pester him on that. And then on Shore Drive, I have sent a letter to the owners, the property owners, expressing the concern and asking them to call me.
All right, we'll keep tracking those then. Good. Good, all right, so that's agent's report. We have for approval the minutes of January 10th, 2023. Do we need to spend some more time on those? I mean, those were really detailed minutes. I think we need to spend more time on them, honestly. I know I need to spend more time on them, especially some of the comments we got today.
On page 7, Vivian has a very scientific phrase that needs some clarification. She refers to soil categories listed are not consistent with hydro-something soils.
We got hydrologic right here on this.
Is that the right, is this supposed to
right
be
here,
hydrologic?
Hydrologic on the last page of this document, hydrologic.
You got
Or
it?
something should be hydrologic, got it.
Fine.
Good for you, Vivian.
And now we have the difference between hay and straw down as well, too. So we're learning stuff. All right, so we're still being recorded right now, but I think we're through our agenda, so we have a motion to adjourn. That would be great.
So moved.
right, Carl on the
Second.
motion to adjourn, seconded by Bill. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, this, very good.
Say goodnight,
Meeting's
Dave.
adjourned. Meeting's over.